place. Dante's Inferno, the devil's maze. It's a good world, good world gone bad. us are splitting hairs. It's a good world. Good world gone bad.
We break up and you slam the door. I messed up on the bedroom floor. What the hell do we do this for? I push you out but you come back. That attraction, we can't fight that. Oh, keep telling myself that I should let go, but I hold on. And oh, keep telling myself that I should move on, but I don't. 'Cause we got that mad love, we got that sad love, we got that fun love, we got that young love, yeah, that dumb love. 'Cause we got that mad love, we got that sad love, we got that fun love, we got that young love, yeah, that dumb love. We got that, we got that, we got that, we got that. sad love. We got that fun love. We got that young love, yeah, that dumb love. We got that mad love. We got that sad love. We got that fun love. We got that young love, yeah, that dumb love. We got that love. We got that. 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 We got that young love, that young love. We got that young love, that young love. We got that young love, that young love. We got that young love, that young love.
Cause I can't stop falling for you. Can't stop falling for you. Cause I can't stop falling for you. Can't stop falling for you. Cause I can't stop falling for you. Cause I can't stop falling for you. Can't stop falling for you. Cause I can't stop falling for you. Can't stop falling for you. Cause I can't stop falling for you.
Welcome on and welcome all to the Amazon University Esports Masters Clash Royale competition. My name is Canafit, joined by Rook for today's competition. Rook, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm so glad to be back with some Clash Royale. It's been a while, and honestly, the uni scene is always such an absolute joy, so I'm glad to be here for this as well. And we've got some pretty awesome matches coming up later as well, with some well-known players, honestly, from around Europe.
Yeah, I mean, this is, of course, like with all of the University Esports Masters events, such an amazing opportunity for these students to be playing at an international level at this point in their lives. It's almost an irreplaceable opportunity.
Absolutely is. I mean, it's not actually the first time for some of these players, so definitely interesting to see how that one is going to be going. And don't forget, because we are an international broadcast, we also have some other broadcasts going on. Obviously, you can catch us and all of our information at twitter.com/UEMasters, but also there's the Spanish stream over at University Esports TV, the German stream at University Esports_DE, and the Portuguese stream at INYGON TV2. Unfortunately, I don't know quite how to say that one, but you should be able to get it just from the letters.
Yes, some of these ones aren't the easiest to say, but we do very much appreciate that whatever language you choose to watch in, you can still be enjoying these same events. Of course, we'll be talking only about Clash Royale today, but there's been multiple other events previous to this, and also events to come in the future. We'll be seeing about those in just a second, but we've already had a couple of winners. There we go. They're from our Rocket League side, and the Hyman Rye from the Netherlands winning out there on Rocket League side, and Whoopie winning out on the TFT side. League of Legends still to come as well, and of course, Clash Royale today. We're going to fill in one more space on this wall of heroes right here today.
Yeah, Benelux has been on a bit of a tear, honestly, but I don't think they're quite going to be able to take it here in Clash Royale, but I'm certainly excited to see who is. I mean, we've got quite a few different countries here. Unfortunately, no UK, but Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, German, and French, I believe, are the last remaining countries still in it.
Yeah, we started off with 16 down to just 6 now, but of course, before we go any further, of course, our thanks to Twitch Student and to Intel for making today's event possible. Please do go share some love to our friends over there before it gets too much further in. As you said, we've managed to cut down our number of competitors pretty dramatically as we go. For anyone who hasn't been part of the competition, is coming to us for the very first time, how have things played out so far? What kind of format are we working with?
Well, the format so far has been a double elim best of 5. So you got 2 chances, which has been lucky for some of these players. Obviously, there's only one remaining who hasn't lost out. Obviously, that being S-Barn. But also, you get one of those card bans away per series, obviously, per player as well. And there is going to be a bracket reset in the finals if there is a lower bracket losers run, which is going to lead to a pretty exciting situation at the very end. But obviously, that player who is in the winners' side of grand finals only has to win one. That's all they have to do. But it's definitely going to be very interesting considering we've got all these grudge matches coming through.
Of course, it's worth bearing in mind, while we haven't been able to show the entire of this tournament on stream because it's been such a big competition with it being double elimination, as you said. We've managed to get through so many of the players yesterday. As you mentioned, the players coming from the upper bracket down to the lower bracket. I prefer to call it a lower bracket than a losers bracket myself because I like to think they're all potential winners as well.
That's such a nice way of putting it. It's not the way I put it, though. No, I'm really excited to see how these players are going to match up. And as I said, I got some players who I'm really, really keeping an eye on. I think we'll get kind of a touch on that later. Because obviously there is something that these players are all playing for, isn't there, Peter?
Yes, so absolutely. So we've got ourselves €2,000 on the line for our players today, but only 3 of them will walk away with any part of that first place, a whole €1,000. Then second and third will share another €1,000 between the 2 of them. So, every single game here matters. Being able to get even one stage further in the competition can make a huge difference for any of our players.
Yeah, it really can, and obviously definitely want to pick up that first place prize. And I mean, as we kind of said before, there is a roadmap to get here. There's been so many different matches coming our way, and obviously qualifications were yesterday. As you said, such a big tournament, so many players, and double elim as well. A lot of matches already come on through, and we've just got the playoffs for you now. And I am, as I said, really looking forward to, obviously, our first matchup is looking to be one hell of a one. I think Jebbers versus Timey is probably one of the ones I'm most excited for in this entire tournament here, as we kind of get on prepped for that one.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll have a look at I think we'll have a look at our our main upper bracket in a second, just to check out some of those players and start to build them up in your mind, because we have got a relatively small field of players left in, only 6 players from our starting 16. So we can see what happened in day 1. You mentioned S-Bahn. You can see them at the far right of your screen. Nobody could take them down.
No, there was some close calls, honestly, even in round 1. 3-2 versus Mush, one of our UK people. But from there, S-Bahn went on a bit of a rampage, taking down Timmy 3-2 again, but taking down Peaky 3-0, and I think the same as well versus Mateo. So impressive performances, but it shows that there is a depth of field. And I think Mateo, I think we got a quote from him saying he was really looking to get some revenge. And obviously, we've also got that lower bracket.
Yes, absolutely. So that's where Mateo ended up heading after losing out to S-Bahn, as well as all of our players. You can see here how condensed everything became. We had players who came down here from the very first round. We've had people like Mateo who are kind of airdropped into the lower bracket, and they've kind of got the advantage because they got so far up in the upper bracket. What we've got is sort of roughly in the middle of the screen, Timmy, Jeebus, Inaraj, and Peaky. Those are the games we're going to be seeing coming up first of all. From each of those games, one of those players will be saying goodbye.
Yeah, honestly, sad to see with so many names, so many stacked players coming on in here. It's a bit it's a bit sad to see them go. We are getting very, very deep in that bracket now, so it makes sense. And obviously, so let's talk about that first matchup which we have coming forward: Teamy versus Jeebus. And you were kind of mentioning to me before that you had a chat with some of the players, and this is a bit of a kind of team kill per se.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing, certainly in the Clash Royale scene, there certainly seems to be a lot of connection between the players themselves as to who they play with, who they played against before. So these two actual former teammates on the team Spanish Kingdom before, they have parted ways since then. So we know they're not necessarily fully up to date on each other's strategies. But from what we're hearing from Jeebus in particular, talking about Teamy, saying there's a lot of respect there from each other. And I suspect that we might see a lot of the same kind of strategies, but I'd love to see as well, at least one of them show that they're in their time apart, they've learned something new.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see it, Timmy, focusing more on the Royal Giant and that kind of graveyard focus, and I think has looked really strong in the competition so far. I know they're in the losers side, there's a lower bracket, sorry, I'll use your terminology, but they haven't lost that many games. I'm going to be real, because they went in, they lost to S-Bahn, obviously the kind of front runner for the competition. And since they got to the losers bracket, they haven't dropped a single game. 3-0, 3-0, and now up versus their old teammate Jeebus. I think they're looking really exciting.
Oh no, Timmy, absolutely a player to watch. They're the only player who's brought S-Bahn all the way to game number 5. So we're very excited to see what it's going to be as we get on to our first game of the day. Oh my gosh, let's see what these two have got for us.
Always starting out with the cursory log coming on here to try and cycle through, get to what you want, and the bats already. Obviously, it doesn't mean too much, but it could be poison-focused decks right now, because we've been seeing that a little bit in the meta.
Okay, we've got ourselves a little skeleton army and our Mother Witch friend. Gonna soak the fireball to the face. Early exchange, pretty solid so far. Of course, Jeebus from Portugal, they were part of that Spanish team before, and Teamy, of course, themselves from Spain. Let's see, so far, it has been a little bit of a standoff between the two of them. Just a little bit more damage for Teamy.
Yeah, obviously kicking things off with mostly responses on both sides. Nothing really entirely composition defining. But obviously got that Fisherman for a lot of great responses, maybe paired up with the Huntsman, as we will see later on. But the Skeleton Giant coming out here. That's a big commit here from Jeebus if they decide to invest something towards it. But the Skeleton King coming on out. That's looking exciting.
Alright, we got ourselves a clash of the skeletons. Of course, Skeleton Giant getting a little bit more HP in the most recent patch means he will be good at blocking up spaces, as we're going to be seeing a ton of skeletons. Both players throwing an absolute kitchen sink at each other. Another fireball. This time, though, Mother Witch is going to survive through, so we'll be able to sneak through some hogs.
Oh, I was surprised to not see the ability of the Skeleton King used there. It was completely full. That would have been 20 whole skeletons coming their way. But Jeebus manages to clear off a lot of it. However, with the Royal Giant coming forth, I was a little bit worried. But luckily, there were some guards to at least deal some of the problem.
And you were talking about before we even started, Royal Giant, a favourite of a lot of our players in the competition. Such reliability of being able to get the damage in when you can just ignore everything else.
Yeah, Miner going in to get that little bit chipped down, but Jeebus obviously got to be a little bit worried because he are down a reasonable amount of health. Do love the bats though, because that means they could deal with some of these problems without taking any damage and then invest it onto a little bit more.
All right, we got the King arriving once again. Jeebus is in trouble. The Giant Skeleton should be able to block off a lot of the play as the ability will be activated. Fireball, as you mentioned before, will take out a lot. There's a good amount of AoE removal in Jeebus' deck, but I don't know if they can stop this approach. The mortar comes down, but it's going to be swiftly dealt with, I think.
Oh, it's going to go down quick, but the bats are making short work of the Royal Giant. However, that doesn't stop it from getting a cannonball onto the tower.
Nice log coming in as well, but it's looking pretty rough here for Jeebus. They've got so much ground to make up. At least they'll make it to overtime.
Yeah, they absolutely will. But the question still remains, right? They've got a lot of ways to kind of nickel and dime, and generally you want to take control with a mortar-focused composition. But Jeebus hasn't had a chance because that Royal Giant has been placed at really opportune moments for time.
It's just not enough damage to be able to take down the big hitters. Fireball again, we used to clear the field. One little hog sneaking through as the Royal Giant will distract the Giant Skeleton, looking to go in for a couple more hits. Jeebus can't let this happen.
Oh my lord. Positive Elixir trade coming out for Jeebus earlier, and now positive one coming on in again, but that inevitability coming through with the reach of the Fireball is something you've got to keep in mind, and that Skeleton King is not having the performance he necessarily wanted to.
No, a little bit disappointing. I think, maybe it's just an acknowledgement that there's enough removal to make it a lot less relevant than it would be otherwise. Jeebus going for their big push, but it's been caught up with so much stuff for teaming.
Yeah, now's the chance to push on forward. Skeleton King goes out, but the Elixir's absolutely there for Jeebus. And now you're looking at Teamy and you're going, okay, how do you close out this game? Because the Fireballs have had to be responsive more than anything.
We were calling for the mortar to come and make a bigger impact. Maybe now's the time. It doesn't seem like Teamy's got the ability to reach out and deal with it immediately, though the Royal Giant will put the lie to those words straight away.
Yeah, now it's looking for a chance to push on forward. I think just 2 cannonballs would clear out the tower, but it doesn't come on in. The Fireball instead, but look at that force amassing from Jeebus.
Oh my gosh, this is gonna be for all the marbles down to the last 30 seconds of overtime. Bringing everything to bear, the Fireball trying to clear the way.
Oh, so desperately, Teamy is chucking out everything right now to buy that little bit of time. The Fireball goes in, but it was 12 HP.
No! We did it!
No! And Jeebus manages to take it, and I was worried, right? His pace was not good in the early game. He did not keep the tempo, but kept calm, cool, and collected to manage to sneak that win out. We saw 12 HP, and the log, it was just a couple of pixels away.
I mean, they may have kept their cool, but I sure as heck didn't. That was a hell of a way to start the competition. I mean, that's always the thing, though, isn't it? When you see the end in sight, you say, I've got this game. That's the moment where maybe you offer your opponent the smallest of windows to get back in.
Yeah, just a little bit different, and that really would have gone the way of Teamy there. I actually did think it was going to, especially with that early pressure, but again, shows the veteran status of Jeebus here, and I'm excited to see more from them as well. Something we mentioned before that is that Teamy kind of focuses on that Royal Giant style, can flex around with it, obviously has the graveyard in the back pocket as well, but we can say the same for Jeebus as well, but because they're such a veteran, they have so much more in their pool. In fact, they have coached, I believe, world-class players, right, with like Vitor75 and others, and definitely knows a lot about all of the kind of meta decks.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's very little that can replace that kind of level of experience, especially as well. I think it's such a unique perspective to be a coach, to be able to talk other players through those kind of situations. And when you get in that situation yourself, you can kind of remember, what did I say to this guy before? Oh yes, I now remember how to keep my head in a crisis.
Yeah, you got to practice what you preach, and I mean, Jeebus has been doing that so far, right? You're always in that situation, no matter what game it is, right? Where you've got your coaching, it's like, you need to keep calm here, you need to clutch it out. Look, it's such an easy win if you do this, and you're like, okay, you do it then. And Jeebus goes out, puts his name on the line, and goes, all right, I will. So impressed with that. And if you're impressed, don't forget you can use the hashtag UEM2022 to follow, discuss, and share, as you can see above me there as we're getting on into the next game.
All right, and our giveaway is active. Use the !UEM Clash Royale to enter in some really, really good prizes available. We're going to be giving away sets of prizes every single series throughout today. Let's get things underway once more after that surprise first game victory.
Starting up with the Skeleton and King again, it looks like Teamy might be in with a very similar composition. And I love that Jeebus has had a lot of flying units. Now, this is really big because it means you could trade so positively into things like the Skeleton King that aren't necessarily as tanky as you'd really want.
Yeah, and you were saying how disappointed you were in what we were seeing from Skeleton King. This time we're going to be seeing an old classic, an old friend coming back to the field. The Hunter and the Fisherman combining, but getting cut down by the Archer Queen.
Interesting to see the Archer Queen's ability used so early. Obviously a little bit better when you have that little bit more elixir, but did manage to mitigate a lot of damage here. But with the Skeleton coming on in, Jeebus trying to find ways to buy time and again go for that clutched out win. Can't really keep the tempo against these bigger skeletons.
I mean, yeah, Skeleton Giant, it's a classic for just slowing the game down. No damage being done from either side so far. Nice interception on the miner there. I think Teamy, having lost that first game, you might justifiably say a shock loss in that first game isn't taking any chances in game 2.
Yeah, it certainly isn't, and a very good defensive usage of the cannon cart here should mean that they're able to clear up the majority of what's coming forward, and we're seeing a lot of focus on a single lane, no kind of split lane strategies here, and I think, honestly, it's because Teamy has been putting a lot of pressure on. Jeebus really has to respond, and Teamy's opting into this more singular strategy.
Well, I think the reason we're seeing that is because, we talked about it before it even started. These are two players who know each other, two players who probably see themselves as roughly equal in terms of skill. So every single point of damage could be game-changing.
Really could be hit. Good usage of the log. And the invisibility as well from the Archer Queen does mean they can find a little bit of extra damage. And I mean, this is looking way better for Jeebus, right, than we saw in the first game.
Yeah, in game 1, Jeebus looks like they had to make a desperation play to get back in. Instead, this time round, it's Chip all day long, and Timey isn't getting the time of day.
No, this is much more what you'd expect from a mortar composition, and I mean, it's working fantastically for them. This deck looks good right now, and I mean, honestly, the Skeleton King, more than anything for me, it's a bit of a question mark. Interested to see if it's going to come out in the third game as well, because I feel like it just, well, you see it right there, the log destroys it.
I do wonder if Tommy thought that maybe they were kind of expected to take the king out and so we're playing 4D chess by not doing it. But in this case, yeah, it's just not working out terribly well. We've got the miner smacking away on the left-hand tower, and Timey's not getting nearly anything back at all.
No, it really isn't. You can see the Skeleton Giant starting to push on through, but look at how low its health is already. Sure, the Archer Queen is going to die, but that's fine by them. Jeebus likely has a way to trade on into this one as the Valkyrie comes on down.
Unfortunately, there aren't enough units dying on the field to allow the king to really get out and show exactly what he's made of. Again, Timey all the way down to nearly 500 HP, and this in game number 2. This is, not just a loss, but a crushing loss, seemingly.
Yeah, oh, the Hunter goes as well. There's going to be a lot of damage, but here finally is the Graveyard, and it's looking for a chance to deal with it. The poison in the back pocket. Jeebus was ready for this one.
Yeah, Jeebus was holding off that poison for a real long time. They are playing with Timey like a cat with a mouse.
Yeah, this is looking super good right now. As the hero starts to move on forward, that Archer Queen could lead to a really big situation, but the Skeleton King drops in the nick of time. The invisibility's there, however, and the aggro is gone, at least for a while, and the poison will tick on through. That'll do it, and Jeebus, as I said, cool, calm, and collected, controlled that game in stark contrast to the prior one.
Yeah, I mean, this is a real taste test. And unfortunately, TV, just felt like they were playing a completely different game that last time round. That's going to be really disappointing for them for what looked to be a series where, it's very frequent to see in these kind of things. If someone sneaks a game out, that's normally an indication that they're kind of on the back foot, as opposed to you come into game 2 and then suddenly they're looking dominant.
I mean, I think the kind of difference was, right, is we started off that game and things were looking bad. Things were going very quickly. The Royal Giant was getting 1 or 2 hits in every time, but then it felt like the plug was really kind of, put in, honestly, by Jeebus, and no longer did we see the Royal Giant wailing away on the tower, getting that little bit of damage in here and there, and as a result, we saw that the round didn't get closed. The timing was close, but it was impressive from Jeebus to kind of actually manage the situation well, and we saw that situation management in that game again. Mortar is a deck that is favored by a lot of high-level players because they love the ability to kind of control the game and really play for want of a different game kind of term for it, gaming term for it, is protect the queen, right? Where you have that big threat and you constantly play a lot of removal around it. You deal with the kind of problems that come to you, and I think that's one of the strengths around the mortar, because obviously the mortar is kind of the queen that you protect, but also there's a lot of other pieces around that which could deal with problems, and it itself deals with the problems. That's why it's so good.
Well, I mean, I think if honestly, Teamy should go back to protecting. It seems like a strange thing to call this, but protecting the queen themselves. That queen being the royal giant works extremely well. We could have had the same situation in game one, which is the royal giant didn't really have a great answer to it, and so the game sort of started tipping and tipping and tipping more and more into Teamy's favor. In this case, not having access to the same kind of level of threat, it felt like they were just left floundering. We had the miner come in again and again. There was no good answer to that. It was getting amazing value every single time.
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of shocked by it. And the Skeleton King is a card which has really stood out for me as not being super effective. Right, you get it on the tower, and you've got a little bit of a charge up. It's fantastic. You drop 20 skeletons on a tower, it's dying pretty quickly unless there's an answer for it. And normally you can kind of press it as you see the card go. That's why it's so flexible. But at the same time, we're just not seeing that kind of success from Teamy. And I think swapping things up is a good shout here.
Alright, so this will be a potential elimination game. If Teamy cannot get a win back, they are gone from the competition and they will not leave with any prize at all. There is a drill coming in, so we can see Jeebus is going to go for the same kind of style, but this time Teamy's got more of an answer.
Teamy definitely has changed up entirely, has a drill of their own, a tornado coming on through. That's going to be a lot of damage coming in, but it looks like they're playing very similar decks.
Alright, yes indeed. Alright, we'll have to see how our Knight friend does. There we got Ghost on the right hand side. Good split offense from Jeebus. It wasn't something we were seeing in the previous games, but actually able to get good value in on both towers.
Yeah, that was so much there. Very impressed by what Jeebus was able to find there, and feels like Teamy was just not ready for the situation. But the cannon cart makes it over the edge, and will just barely, I think, be kept out of range of that tower as well, is the most important thing. No! It gets some hits in, so that's going to chip away a little bit here, but with the King Tower activated, that's fine by Jeebus.
This is one of the things I was looking to see today, is because, of course, the Golden Knight, having had that ability, or I say ability, having that liability of activating the King Tower removed, that's big for Jeebus, but it's doing a good amount of work here. That left-hand tower is looking a little shaky for Jeebus.
Yeah, that was really good from Timey there, and obviously the damage found earlier was a big part of that. The Goblin Drill able to come on in, deal a decent amount of damage to that tower, and obviously have the Goblins there was big, and they managed to play off the back of it as well.
Alright, so let's see what else they've got for us here. Archer coming out. I like to see this as well. In fact, wow, it's like we're looking in a mirror, Rook.
Yeah, I mean, these guys were teammates, so they likely have the same ideas, same strategies, and I mean, if they're playing the same deck, it's likely they're going to have the same ideas in terms of what cards need to go in, what units are best to kind of deal with this problem, and looks like both of these players have a good grasp on the meta.
There's the drill coming in, as Jeebus is the one now facing down the pressure from Teamy, backed into a corner. Perhaps this is where they are the most dangerous.
Yeah, pressure again on the tower. You see the drill coming on in, but the Royal Ghost does manage to deal with some of those problems, and as a result, they're now going to start to mount a counter-attack. There's actually a little bit of a elixir advantage in the favor of Teamy, so they're going to start to put it in here.
Alright, so now we've got to see, as we get deep into the weeds here, if Jeebus has got enough to be able to pull out any kind of surprise win from before. Of course, if things stay exactly as they are, it will go in the way of Teamy. We have got a Knight sneaking in, but the damage isn't enough to push Jeebus over the edge.
Yeah, this is so much damage coming through here, and the charge from the Knight is big, but it doesn't manage to deal with it, and we've seen situations like this before. Do not count Jeebus out.
The Archer is there. Nice. Uses the Tornado to try and set the Archer up. It doesn't quite hit onto the tower. The Goblins are going to hit onto the back. This is going to be real close.
It is indeed the Barbarians pushing through, but it's going to be dealt with. The health advantage now in the favor of Jeebus, with the damage coming through as well. 58 HP.
No.
If there was a reach spell, it'd do it, but with the Goblin Drill coming in, this might be it.
The Archer gets pulled away. No! Jeebus sneaks it out. Oh my god! That is going to be 3-0. Teamy is out of here. But those two of those games couldn't have been closer.
They really, really couldn't. Impressed with Jeebus to be able to steal that one again. And honestly, I forget the tornado deals damage. I'm going to be real with you. But just right there, Jeebus shows he's been around the block. He knows a couple of tricks and manages to take the game with that tiny bit of reach with 58 HP taken away. It was easy pickings for him. But as you said, like a whirlwind, honestly, that was so exciting and it's gone so fast, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. These are 5 games. Sure, of course, in the grand final, we will at least be guaranteed the chance of getting it more. So while we are waiting, of course, do go check out in the chat, gentle friends, that we have got ourselves our giveaway. So !UEM Clash Royale in the chat. That's a really good giveaway going right now. Definitely recommend you get part of that. There's a box of different goodies to give away, including a dragon plushie, collection cards, pins, stickers, even an Alexa plush, which is a keychain as well. So fantastic chance to get them. They're going to be given away during the whole of the competition. Of course, again, before we do go here to a short break, before we come back with our next one, our thanks again to Twitch, Student, and Intel. When we return, we'll be going down to Inneraj versus Piki, our second elimination match, before we then go on to the next round and see who Jebus has got to face up against them. So stick with us. Tons more Clash Royale today. We'll be back after a short break.
Should've known that it was obvious. Should've read between the lines. Caught the eyes of the audience.
Welcome back, one and all, to Amazon University Esports Masters. We've already had one game and one elimination. Rook, what a heartbreaker that first series was.
Yeah, it was so sad to see. I had my sights, well, looking high, honestly, for Teamy. I was impressed with their performance earlier on in the tournament, but it kind of came on through, and their ex-teammate Jeevers, I mean, he is a veteran, he's a great coach as well, worked with world-class players as well, and kind of showed his class right there, playing so calm, so collected, and clutching out 2 of the games and stomping the other.
So Jeebus moves on to the next round, but they need to have an opponent. And that's what we're going to be determining right now in this upcoming game. Rook, who is on the field of play?
Well, we've got Inaraj versus Peaky, and Inaraj is a French player on a hot streak right now and loses. I've been impressed with their performance so far, but and has only lost to and played versus strong contenders. Sadly, knocked out both those UK players, but I will let it slide. Went down into losers, I believe, because of Teamy, and is top 2 on Amazon University Esports France.
Yeah, that's not a small thing at all. Picky from Spain, representing the University of Barcelona. They had a very strong run through the upper bracket as well, so this should be a pretty fierce encounter. I mean, based on what we saw in the previous game, we saw a couple of games where people were bringing out decks that just didn't have good answers for each other and having to resort to pretty extreme measures to get the win.
Yeah, it really did. Honestly, it was impressive to see that Tornado was the thing which closed it out. I don't think I've seen that very often, and I'd forgotten that it. I did know at one point, but everything gets lost to the mist of time, especially when you're this old. But yeah. I'm really excited to see what kind of plays we see coming next, because that was just the first series of today. We still got a decent more to come. I think it can only get better from here, right?
Oh, for sure. So, yeah, as we said before, once this match is done, we'll see the winner go up against Jeebus, and then Mateo, coming down from the upper bracket, will be the final boss for the losers or lower bracket. Before, of course, our grand finals with Espan, who nobody has managed to beat as of yet, who's lurking in the grand finals, waiting for their challenger. But let's get on to the field of fight and see what these two have got for us.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to this, and obviously, kicking things off quickly, don't forget about the hashtag UEM 2022 if you want to talk about anything with us on Twitter.
Yes, and of course our giveaways go on !UEM Clash Royale in the chat. It's a really good giveaway there, loads of really cool stuff, including a plushie. And we've got 8 of them to send out to you guys, so make sure you don't miss out on the opportunity. As we get into things, and it's looking like we're going to be seeing ourselves a night to remember.
Very funny, very funny. But yeah, the Mother Witch coming on through, and the Fireball response coming in naturally. I feel like I saw that so much, especially on release, right? We saw Mother Witch going down, and a Fireball hitting her. I mean, she's not quite as strong now, but still a very, very good unit.
But that's the thing, isn't it? You just got to make sure you don't have to deal with the worst case scenario, which is that your entire team ends up turning into hogs and running down your base.
Yeah, really don't want that one going that way. We're seeing Royal Giant come on out finally here from Inaraj, as they are going to opt on into that one. And wouldn't be surprised to see it on the other side, but it's Skeleton Army as well, which completely devours it. It's like seeing, piranhas go hungry over something.
Oh my gosh, and those piranhas are coming knocking on the door. Here, Inaraj is in a little bit of trouble. There comes out the Skeleton Knight with all of the small units now being in play in this particular game. That's going to see a lot more mileage.
Yeah, a lot of damage as well onto this left-hand tower. Peaky keeping up the pressure early on here and is looking to try and push on through. But a double threat coming out here with the Skeleton Army moving on in, but mostly getting picked off. And that's easy pickings for the Mother Witch. Luckily, there's going to be a push on the left-hand side, but you see that log coming on through and mitigating most of the pressure.
But that's exactly what we were talking about before. That's the worst case scenario. You turn a whole army into an army for the opposition instead. This is going to shape everything Inaraj is doing from here on out. They're behind on health on both towers, and they know their play could turn real sour real fast.
Yeah, and right now on board, they're a little bit behind on Elixir. You see the Mother Witch coming down as well, trying to deal with the problem. But that kind of mitigates the fact that the Skeleton Knight was trying to come on through. But the Fireball deals with it quickly. Luckily, there is a good usage of the Fisherman to try and split that out, make sure the damage isn't too focused.
The Knights will clash once again. A huge brawl in the center. More army coming out as well. There's the Mother Witch, though. She's always ready to pick up the opportunity to grab herself 1, 2, 3 hogs right onto the right-hand tower.
Yeah, and that health advantage is so in favor of him right now. You can see the push forward with the Royal Giant, but the log does deal with most of its backup.
It's still looking pretty dire here for Inneraj. They're just not getting much time at all on Piki's side of the map, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
No, look at the health on that right-hand tower. A couple of fireballs as well will do it terrible. We'll easily deal with that one. But as the Royal Giant has dropped on the left, the Royal Giant has dropped on the right. Skeleton Army to buy them that lick of time, but there's the log. The hit does not go in, just barely, so kept alive. And look at that left-hand tower. What a snipe coming in here with the fireball from Piki. I really thought they were about to lose, but the fireball saves them.
Oh my gosh. Apparently, that's what we're going to be seeing all the way through today, is absolute photo finishes from everybody, particularly as well, given how that game was going. That's a bit of a shocker to end out on.
Yeah, I mean, I really did think, obviously, it was going to go the way of Piki in the end, but I didn't expect it like that, right? With the 1-2 punch getting eaten, the Fisherman doing such fantastic work to keep that Royal Giant away, right as it was about to strike onto that tower as well, into the counter push as well, because obviously they dropped their own Royal Giant on that left-hand side, but Piki with the fireball clenches it. And as you said, it does feel like a photo finish every single time. You know, you gotta keep something for the finals, guys. You can't keep my heart like this.
Well, as well, it's very important to bear in mind, further to what you're saying here, the S-Bahn, who is, made it through the upper bracket, they're going to be watching each of these games with extreme interest. Because for the players, they've got to balance getting through the competition without giving up every single one of their secrets to get to the finals in the first place.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen a lot of Royal Giants so far. Not a huge surprise, obviously. A very modular deck that can kind of deal with a lot of different problems, and a great threat as well. We saw what happened right there, right? As soon as the Royal Giant gets through, if you leave it unattended, it's just going to destroy the tower in such short order, and it almost happened. So, not a surprise to see it coming on through. Haven't seen as much hog cycle as I thought we were going to see, honestly. And I mean, we do know that there are some players that really like to focus on those more aggressive decks. I believe that Piki was one of them, so maybe we'll get to see a little bit more of that coming forward.
I hope so, absolutely. I think what we did definitely see as we kind of went through that game on is the players sort of learning to adapt to each other's styles. So I'm fascinated to see if that maybe starts happening a little bit quicker in Game 2, Game 3, and potentially going on to Game 4 and Game 5. Of course, our first series only went to 3 games despite being as close as it was. So I wonder if we might start to see players adopting a little bit more conservative of a strategy if things can end up ending so quickly.
I mean, it worked well for Jeebus, honestly, especially in that first and third game, so wouldn't be surprised to see some more of that going that way. But, I mean, at the same time, you gotta respect the fact that you just gotta go whole hog, for want of a better phrase.
Alright, well, we'll see if that hog fantasy comes true as the minions will take flight. We do see our little heal spirit friend knocking around. Of course, Ice Spirit getting a little bit of buff recently. Wonder if we'll be seeing some of those. Certainly the Archer Queen we'll be expecting to see a lot of, but this time it will be a mismatch of champions, not the same which we've been seeing from a lot of our games up until this point.
A little bit of damage going on in here. The Golden Knight going through with the Naruto run and just, going straight for the face.
Hey, if it works, it works. Actually getting right past the Ghost there, which is an interesting interaction, which will put Unaraj in the lead for the time being. Nothing we're seeing so far is, going to be able to necessarily stop that knight from just charging through and bouncing right onto the tower.
Oh, it looks like it's bridge spam coming out from Piki here, that more aggressive style starting to finally show here. But the Golden Knight is so good at clearing up some of those lower health units, and you kind of see that there.
Yeah, I like what we're seeing here. So there's a little bit more damage being put through. Archer actually doing a decent job on the right-hand side as both of our players try and recover themselves. So currently, Piki with the advantage, again representing the University of Barcelona. Now we're just going to see what else they've got for us.
Bandit coming on in, but the P.E.K.K.A. will one-shot that, as a mini P.E.K.K.A. is wont to do.
Gosh, who doesn't love the mini P.E.K.K.A.? Almost gets the hit off there, which would have been a bit of a disaster. Uh-oh! It looks like it's time for the big guns, Rug.
Yeah, Sparky's and Zappy coming on out here. looking for a little bit of that damage instead, readying that push on the right-hand side, but look at the pressure being put on the left right now with those Barbarians and with the Royal Ghost. That's going to be a decent amount of damage, at least to be able to deal with the problem. And I don't know, I didn't actually notice what happened there. What happened to the Sparky?
Yeah, so that was a lovely bit of play from Peaky. They used the active to be able to go stealth and then kill Sparky while Sparky was just walking up. So that's a big problem for Inneraj. They now know that they can get beaten out by a 5 elixir unit when they're dropping down their 6 elixir giant cannon.
I mean, that's the thing, right? That's why that de-aggroing is so darn good. It's great against things like Inferno Towers as well, because you reset that timer, you reset the charge up, and, I mean, honestly, you look a little bit chumpish if you get caught by things like that.
We got a good push in from the left-hand side. The Goblin Giant will soak the aggro. Minions are there as well. There comes down the Rage. But the Sparky's going very low. Can't get the shot off. It's just the Goblin Giant, but it's doing the work.
Yeah, it takes it down to 292. Now, there is a zap in hand, but importantly, there's no fireball, which could help deal with that. They will be able to cycle through as we go on in now. You can see Inneraj starting to drop those units where they can. Likely going to try and look for an opportunity right now because they are on the back foot. Look at the health of that right-hand tower. It's going low, and the pressure is on. They're looking for a chance.
Wow, they're deciding to switch targets across the left healthier tower because they don't want to have their own tower pushed onto 292. Ooh. Here comes in the rush.
There it is. There's the one hit. There's the hit. Coming on through. Brilliantly done. And evening up the scoreline. Really great play from Inneraj.
Oh my gosh. That was fantastic, and that means we will see at least a 4-game series. We're not going to have any clean sweeps here in our next game. But wow, I mean, you know, the quality of the players here from all across Europe is not to be sniffed at. They are really, really bringing out all the guns.
I was really excited as well for Inneraj's confidence. The Goblin Giant coming through, not a unit you see every day. And Sparky Rage, I mean, it's an old idea, it is an old strategy, but it's one I always like to see. It's heavy hitting and can be really exciting, really fun. So glad to see that one coming back. But the question I kind of have is, will that surprise factor be kind of lost? Will they change up? Will they keep on shifting around what they're doing? I think it's a good shout to, honestly, because of the pressure that's kind of coming through from their opponents and how we've seen people change up and kind of adapt over the course of these series so far.
I mean, that's one of the wonderful things about these competitions as well, is because the players are having to play against each other again and again, you've got this real kind of standoff thing. As you say, you know, if someone picks the same composition, do I have a better answer to it this time round? Just the threat of that happening is enough to affect what you pick next.
Yeah, absolutely. We do actually have bans, I would like to remind everyone, and in the previous series it was Earthquake and Royal Hogs, but here it is Mortar and Tornado. Interesting decision here from Peaky. I think it makes a lot of sense if you're playing a more aggressive strategy to take away that Tornado, because otherwise, you know, it can be a thorn in your backside. But the Mortar away from Inneraj here, I think is a really good call, because with the way they've been playing some of their decks, I think that more tempo style really could catch them off guard.
Yeah, and it makes, you know, again, it makes such a big difference. This is such a unique environment for our players, because you're not playing on the regular ladder. You know, you don't have that balance. You've got the same opponent again and again. It's such a great chance to see the depth of these players' skills, to see just how bad they want to make it through to the finals.
Indeed here. Starting off the bat, cycling on through, and Skeleton Knight again. I mean, we saw how effective it can be in that game 1 as opposed to the series 1 of today. So I'm more inclined to see a bit more of it, but the Flying Machine is going to make short work of it. If not for the Bone Dragons, we're seeing a lot of skeletons, whether it's dragons, whether it's kings, whether it's giants today. And you know what? I'm absolutely here for it.
Well, we've never said we're going to be playing bare bones today. It's all full of flavor behavior.
I mean, bones add a lot to flavor, right? You got stocks, obviously, and things like that.
True.
So, you know, you can't knock them.
We're going to do a cooking stream. I hope so.
Well, with how spicy some of these brews are.
Dips. Oh my gosh, but who could have not a feast without a lava hound? There's, you know, we've got lava hounds everywhere.
One on either side with the backup of the Skeleton King as well. That can be a massive threat, but it looks like on the right-hand side, Inneraj is not dealing with the opposing Lava Hound, and that could be a big mistake.
Well, that's the thing. At the moment, the Lava Hound isn't doing a ton of damage, so it's being ignored. Inneraj is going in, and we have got the Baby Dragon joining in, but look at the left-hand tower of Peaky. It's being destroyed. The Lava Pups are coming. This could be it.
Yeah, and they can activate the Skeleton King here. This is so much damage. There's nothing to clear it. A Skeleton Army of their own, but that's way too late. Way too little. And while the right-hand tower is likely to fall, look at that King Tower. It is absolutely wrecked.
God.
And Inaraj showing just how effective that Skeleton King can be, right? I said, when it gets on the tower, when you drop 20 skeletons, it's generally pretty good for 1 mana. For 2 mana. And that could be so fantastic, as we saw right there. Too much momentum, too much tempo coming their way, and Peaky just couldn't deal with it.
I mean, I love the combination there with the Skeleton King. And particularly, we were just talking about this before, Inarash, they brought out their own Lava Hound, and it just got completely ignored. That is such a big gamble. You're putting that much elixir into one unit. If you don't have the follow-up there to make that a major threat, then people can just ignore it. I didn't expect to see the game end quite that abruptly, though, and put us into elimination point.
Well, the interesting thing here is, right, obviously, there were Lava Hounds on both sides, but the difference was the investment of a Skeleton King towards that left-hand side by Inaraj. It meant that they had the pressure, they were going to win the timing, win the race, and therefore the response had to come out from Peaky rather than from themselves, and as a result, there was no backup, right? You were saying it yourself, when a Lava Hound is just wailing on your tower, go ahead. As long as you deal with the problem eventually, it doesn't deal that much damage until the pups are out or if there's some kind of backup. Sure, it's tanky. Sure, it'll last a long time. But frankly, there wasn't enough time for Peaky, and that's the most important thing.
I mean, for Peaky, they've got such a big decision to make coming now into game number 4. This could be the beginning of their comeback, or it could be the end of the road for them. There are no more second chances in this competition. What we said at the beginning, this is double elimination. A lot of that double eliminating has already kind of been resolved. We are down to now single elimination for all our players from this point out.
Well, we are indeed halfway there, and right now, I think for your Peaky, you are indeed living on a prayer. A couple of chances available to them. They have 2 wins which they need to get to be able to lock this one out. But with the way Inaraj has been playing, you're gonna have to deliver right here, right now, and against, frankly, it could be anything coming out.
That's the terror you face when you're close to elimination and you don't know if you've made the right choice. Skeletons will scout. Here comes the miner. We've seen what they can do in our previous series. No, sorry, not the miner. Of course, it's going to be the goblin drill instead, fulfilling a similar purpose. The hunter deals with it pretty quickly, but the archer's there to sneak through a little damage for Peaky.
Yeah, actually you'll be able to chew up a little bit of that, but obviously Fisherman does show that Inaraj has access to the Fisherman and the Hunter, and now, importantly, that King Tower.
All right, Peaky looking pretty good. Peaky studying for a degree in criminology, so we know that they've got the smarts to be able to make their way through and figure out what the path is going forward. So far, Inaraj keeping a lot close to their chest. Here comes out our friend, the Skeleton Giant, but they'll be meeting a knight in the field.
Knight should be able to deal with that pretty well with a little bit of backup here. As the cannon cart starts to come through, and if we don't see an investment from Inaraj here to try and deal with that problem, that cannon cart spawning on your side is going to lead to a lot of damage coming on through.
Yeah, that's going to be a big problem. We can see it gets all the way onto the bridge before dropping. As she gets pulled back in, the archer from Peaky will help trim a little bit of damage. But something I'm noticing so far from Peaky's side is, oh, actually, hold the fun on that one. We've got a Royal Giant.
Yeah, a lot of work being put in with this Magic Archer, but the Royal Giant is hard to cut through. However, massive elixir advantage right now for Peaky if they can make this push happen.
So one thing I was going to say that we don't see from Peaky here is we're not seeing a lot of small spammed units, so that Giant's not going to be massively effective with the Death Bomb, but maybe that extra 7% attack speed was enough to get the kill through. We're left in a pretty even situation with 1 minute left to regular play.
I think the most important thing to note about Peaky's comp right now is looking to nickel and dime their opponents out, get that little bit of damage here and there, and then take the win that way, maybe even go to time. But you're looking at Inaraj, and sure, you can kind of play nickel and dime style with the Royal Giant, but you also just go, bang, destroy everything. That's the plan, and with an Earthquake going forward, I think Inaraj being pretty obvious about their intentions.
Yeah, it's working pretty well. There's not a ton coming back in reply. The cannon cart will get locked down in unfriendly territory, but a little short of being able to hit the tower. We have got ghosts coming in on both flanks, though. Inaraj needs to be a little careful, but they've got distracting units.
Could be a big push on this right-hand side as well if Inaraj wants to invest towards it, as you see a lot invested on this left-hand side. I think the Hunter, however, will help deal with that pretty darn quickly. The drill goes through, but the log as well, providing a little bit of space, a little bit of knockback, could be huge. Look at the positioning as well of that cannon cart. It's not going to spawn in range of the tower, importantly, and it's going to get rid of pretty darn quickly as the Royal Giant on the left makes a big push.
There we go, the Earthquake coming in. Inaraj has got that inevitability there. The shots are landing. Piki needs to find something real big because they are so far behind.
Sparky's here, Inaraj, knowing they're so far ahead right now that they could just play it slow. They don't have to go too hard. If they play for time, Piki's going to have to invest something and make a gamble.
And of course, Piki can't lose this game when they're gone from the competition. This is such a good setup here for Inaraj. They're presenting Piki with an impossible conundrum.
Royal Giant again on this left-hand side. You can see the cannon cart already invested. Fisherman provides a little bit of space, a little bit of time, a little bit of damage over to the Royal Giant. The shot doesn't go through, importantly here. So well invested by Piki. They keep themselves alive for now.
You can see Piki's pretty pleased with themselves for having managed to survive a little bit longer. 1 minute left of overtime. They've got to make the best use of this. They're absolutely not going to win on the tiebreaker.
They absolutely aren't. 600, well, about 700 HP for Piki's left-hand tower right now. They need to look for a chance to push. The drill tries to go in, but there's not a massive comeback potential on this composition right now. That's something you've got to keep in mind. They don't have a heavy hitter like that. They need to try and get incremental damage.
I have to think this one is basically done. We're not seeing Inaraj being pushed back far enough, quickly enough. 30 seconds left to play. We need to see something enormous. Here comes in the Golden Knight, but the defense force there of Inaraj is overwhelmingly strong.
Yeah, so much damage coming through onto those units from Inaraj there. And with the Earthquake, with the log, with everything else going in, this final push, I mean, there's only 10 seconds.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's just so well done. Inaraj, with this, they will take the victory they need to go on to the next round and face off against Chivas, who, of course, will be watching this one very carefully. Ultimately, the tiebreaker was a little bit closer than it could have been, but still the result stands.
Yeah, really impressed, honestly, by that performance from Inaraj. I was hyping them up beforehand, and I'm so glad I did. I thought with the way Piki was playing, especially in that game one, that things were looking a little shaky. But Inaraj shows they have what it takes, and with some slightly off-kilter strategies and also a Royal Giant.
Oh boy, I mean, I'm fascinated to see how these two players go up against each other now. So we've had a 3-0 and a 3-1. So we've both got players who've got it in mind that they're going to try and make their run through the losers bracket, through the lower bracket, and climb their way back up to the Heady Heights. Do remember, but if any of these players, or whichever player gets through to the finals, will have to win twice to be able to win the entire thing. The big prize for Espan at this point is they'll only have to win once in our grand finals to crown themselves the champion.
Yeah, and if you want a big prize of your own, !UEM Clash Royale, all one word, in the chat to win one of those big old box of goodies, including a Dragon Plush, collection cards, pins, stickers, and the Elixir Plush, which I believe, as you said earlier, is a keychain, and some Royal Clash Royale merch codes that can be redeemed at redeem.supercell.com.
Alright guys, so we shall be heading to a short break before we come back with our next epic encounter. Again, Jeebus will be taking to the field once more, so if you're here to support them, get yourselves ready. Our thanks again to our friends from Intel and from Twitch, and we'll be back in just a few short minutes' time.
Should've known that it was obvious. Should've read between the lines. Caught the eyes of the audience. Played your game where the rules do not apply. Now I see when it's out in the light, and I'm leaving your life behind. Now I see that you're out of my life. I don't need you. Every day we had another fight. I was far too blind to realize that our love had got out of control. Should've known I was better off alone. Now I see you when it's out in the light, and I'm leaving your love behind. Now I see that you're out of my life. I don't need you.
Welcome one and all back to Amazon University Esports Masters. Poppy joining us on a desk for our third game today. Rook, why should Poppy be apprehensive at the level of play we've seen so far?
I mean, we saw some fantastic stuff from Jeebus in their series earlier today, showing absolute mastery of a couple of different decks, but obviously focusing on that Mortar. Whereas we saw on the other side, Inaraj showing ingenuity with some off-kilter decks coming through, like the Sparky, like everything else, and also just a general mastery of play. And I think the thing which should make them apprehensive is the fact that we're seeing neither of those things coming through. The bans that we have had are Jeebus bans away Sparky, and Inaraj bans away Mortar, and I think this is fantastic, right? Inaraj, looking at that first series, can't let the Mortar through. Jeebus was so effective with that one and understands a lot of the matchups. Now, Jeebus on the other side, as I said, understands a lot of matchups, encyclopedic knowledge of this game, but really doesn't want to deal with something that's a little bit off kilter like the Sparky. So I think this is a really good shout from both sides.
I can definitely appreciate. Oh gosh, okay, she's just gonna go to sleep now. I can definitely appreciate wanting to take Sparky out of the mix. I mean, you said, I think Mortar offers that consistency. For Sparky, it's the explosivity. So you combine, especially when you've got the rage going on as well, just how quickly that can end the game, or even at worst, end the push real quick if you don't see it coming.
Yeah, I mean, it can catch you off guard, and it's always such a weird one to kind of deal with, right? If you've got the Electro Wizard or something, it kind of falls apart because it gets shocked, doesn't really get a chance to duel too much, but at the same time, and obviously the Sparkies, the Zappies as well, can be fantastic to deal with it too, but at the same time, when it hits and you're like, oh wow, that just blew apart everything, it's like, it's always such a weird one to evaluate, right? And I think from a lot of high-level players, they're like, okay, Sparky's generally quite bad, but then sometimes it is good. And that kind of question mark always kind of leaves at least me, and I think a lot of other people, a little bit stumped. I mean, you were saying yourself, whenever you used it, it just completely fell apart and didn't even get to hit anything. But in the right place in the right time, it can make all the difference in the world.
I mean, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's if you're a good enough player to spot that window of opportunity happening, then you can absolutely punish the other side. But I think that just so often, at the lower levels, you just don't see when that opportunity is there. You don't sort of notice what part of the cycle the opponent is in. Certainly for our players here, they'll know from the first couple of cards, they'll know what the other team's, the other player is playing, and they'll know where those windows of opportunity lie.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it as well, and I'm interested as well to see if Inaraj has something else in the back pocket. Obviously, the Goblin Giant was a big part of that push as well, and whether they're going to be bringing out the Rage at all again. I mean, we could see, for example, Lava Loon or Rage Loon of some description, but this time Inaraj starting out with a Graveyard.
All right, that's something a little bit different. I do believe we had a small nerf on the speed these skeletons are coming out, but they're still pretty darn good. Got ourselves a little friendly baby dragon to come and help out as well, so might be able to get some work done here. Nice use of the Electro Spirit to clear the ground, and who's this big fella again?
Royal Giant pushing left. I've never seen this happening before, but it's so darn effective, right? But the Skeleton King pushing on the right-hand side could be a bit of a threat too if something came to back it up. Look at how many skeletons are available for it to summon, but it summons right at the end, and a log deals with the majority.
All right, so when all is said and done, Jeebus feeling a little bit of hurt on that right-hand tab, but nothing too serious. Still a few cards to be revealed here. We'll see if any of them have brought out anything surprising.
Yeah, really like that trade again. And even though the log was invested, I want to point out that that's fine for the Skeleton King, for the Skeleton King, because you don't use a card there. That's the most important thing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these players are going to be playing for every single drop of elixir they can handle. You know, even this early on into the game, just finding a little advantage to be able to get through, to sneak through that little bit of extra damage, so the Inaraj has done there, can make all the difference as we got a double giant push in the brewing.
Oh wow, really trying to make a way forward, but the Tornado keeps it at bay at least for now, and that explosion's coming through in just a sec.
Nice double hit there on the tower. Means now Jeebus is ahead, just has to deal with the retribution coming. The log will make short work of that push, and we now see that right now these big groups, the units just aren't working terribly well for Inaraj at all.
Feels like they're just getting taken down by this log. Jeebus getting so much value out of that one. And honestly, I mean, if he didn't, obviously that Night Witch and Skeleton King push, that would have been deadly. But it was dealt with, and that's the most important thing with a Fireball coming in too. That's going to keep that Night Witch low and in log range, most importantly.
Yeah, and another log through, as well as Electro Spirit being able to chain through onto the tower, means that things are still looking pretty dicey here for Inaraj. With another push coming as the Golem comes in. That's a commit and a half.
That is so much elixir going down, but if it works, it works. And he's going to need a big push as well, as Inaraj's right-hand tower is already down to 1,200, so this needs to happen. Look at that Skeleton Knight as well, Skeleton King as well.
The lightning drops, the thunder roars. Francis Inaraj is putting everything into this push. They get some good amount of damage down. Unfortunately, the Golem has been brought to the King Tower, and it's going to do a good amount of damage, but it's not the damage that's going to count unless a tower goes down.
I think the most important thing to keep in mind here is obviously if we get to that King Tower, that's going to matter. But other than that, that Fisherman did such a good job at denying that Golem away. However, importantly, there might not be another one up. You could see units getting dropped. Jeebus going, all right, can I cycle through? There it is. There's the Fisherman, and there goes the Golem yet again. That's so brutal.
Yeah, such great counterplay to an 8 elixir. And of course, we're in overtime, so we won't be able to see more than one tower. The little Golemites will get through for a little bit of damage. The Baby Dragon doing a good job of knocking down the Skeleton Giant before it gets across the river. The Graveyard coming in is the Tombstone coming in is going to be the difference between 1 or 2 shots from that Royal Giant.
Log again, and it seems like, honestly, a curse word for Inaraj right now, because every time it comes down, it's so darn effective.
We are down to the wire here, everybody. 1 minute left to play in overtime at both these right-hand Princess Towers. Solo, the lightning is coming. The thunder is roaring. This could be game 1 in the bag.
Yeah, it just needs that chance to deal a little bit more damage. Explosion goes on through, clears out the majority of that. And in fact, the Royal Giant pushing on the right-hand tower. There is going to be enough elixir, but how are they going to deal with it as the Fireball goes on forward?
I don't know if the Royal Giant can be stopped. It gets the shot, but not the second. Advantage to Jeebus. The lightning brings it back to advantage. The Fireball comes, and the log is on its way, and that's going to be it. Game 1 to the Portuguese Jeebus.
What is this? That's what I really have to ask here, Peter, because we're seeing again and again players trying to close the game out with Tornado, and then it's the log that does finish that. That's less surprising to see. You do see that quite often, but I am blown away. The reach is so important in these matchups. The ability to kind of go over and close on that final tick of damage. And we have been going to overtime after overtime, I feel.
Oh my gosh. And that's why I think where it becomes so important to have those tools like the lightning in there. You've just got that bigger piece of punch. When Elixir becomes less of a concern deep into the later game, you've got these big hitting spells that can make the difference.
Yeah, honestly, I'm really impressed with Jeebus and their usage of log. Obviously, it closed out the game, but also it denied so much elixir value, killing off so much, also managing to push back a lot as well, providing that space for some of their other units to move on through. Alongside the Fisherman, that displacement has been so effective, and honestly, what allowed Jeebus to pick them up. And I think that's such an important card for players to be good at using, because log, I feel, is synonymous with the competitive aspect of the game, because it's all, I feel like, at the very least, it's always been around, right?
Oh, for sure. I remember, cards like Log. Tornado was the one that really sort of first grabbed my attention with Clash Royale and made me think, wait a second, there's a lot more to this game than you would sort of think on first blush. You kind of look at the kind of graphical style and things and think, this is probably not a game with a ton of strategic depth. But as we've seen here today, that first impression couldn't be more wrong.
No, absolutely not. You can see it in the players and the way they move. And I mean, we're talking about micro distances, right? I was talking about the cannon cart, and these players are dropping right before it's within tower range, so it doesn't get to wail away on that one. I mean, this time we're shifting things up again with the different kinds of decks. The Hog Rider going straight forward.
So while we are underway, of course, don't forget to use !UEM Clash Royale if you'd like to win one of our prize boxes. They have got some really fantastic stuff in there as our players, of course, compete to try and get prizes for themselves. The Queen will get caught in an unfortunate situation, but does a lot of damage before getting taken down.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, that Golden Knight is doing very little into the Valkyrie here, so Jeebus in a good position now to try and take some advantage, but well, it'll be interesting to see how they do that, whether we're going to see a more split-pushy style in the Inferno Tower coming out here to try and deal with things, for example, like the Golem that we saw before, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely ludicrous single target damage. The Royal Giants can have a pretty rough time with dealing with that later on. I'd imagine for Jeebus they would have loved to be able to unveil it on some kind of push like that, but instead they've given away most of their deck already, just one card remaining to be revealed.
A lot of information given over and a bit of elixir positive for Inaraj right now. Can obviously push on forward. It still has a 2 elixir advantage, especially with how they're going to push on into this. Obviously, the invisibility coming in handy there, and obviously gets that little bit of extra damage, but still, they manage to trade out forward, and the Royal Ghost is very happy to push on forward here until it meets the Valkyrie.
Yes, our good friend the Valkyrie, newly nerfed, but still ludicrously popular all over the place. Jeebus from the Nova School of Science and Technology trying to do their best to keep their run up in the competition. We have got ourselves some sneaky goblins trying to get on the right-hand side of Jeebus' play, but the answers are there almost immediately.
Yeah, good log as well. Managed just to clip the edge of that Magic Archer here as now the Hog Rider goes on in.
There's our friend Tornado, the answer to so many problems, activates the King Tower, and that's going to make it even harder for the Hog to really get the damage down.
Yeah, unfortunately the Hog Rider is not in Kansas anymore, unfortunately dragged away from that one and activated that King Tower, so this is going to make that aggression even harder for Jeebus here right now, especially because their deck, at least right now, doesn't have any big haymakers to try and settle the score.
And looking at what just happened there with the Inferno Tower, it did make me wonder if, while that tower is a theoretical great answer to a lot of stuff that's being put out here, maybe there are just too many good targets.
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem. I was surprised as well. Jeebus opting really hard into the Inferno Tower, and I think it's coming back to bite them. I think that's a big problem right now, because there are none of those big targets, a lot of medium targets, but that's just not where the Inferno Tower excels.
No, they really need something big and expensive so they can get value out of it. As we go to overtime, things are not looking great for Jeebus right now. They've been taking a lot of chip damage. We have got the Hog coming in again, but as we can see from the health total on the right-hand tower, that Hog has not been getting the job done.
It really hasn't. Unfortunately for Jeebus, there's been very few chances for it to push forward. However, the Poison is doing a decent enough job, but not quite enough right now as that Tornado drags things forward and the pressure keeps on going. The log tries to buy a little bit of space, a little bit of time, and does just that, at least for now.
A Knight falling just short of the tower, and unfortunately the cannon doing the same. So we've got our full fields out here. Jeebus is going to need to find a way to put together their play in a way that really turns our expectations on their head from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, cannon cart going out here is going to be made short work of, but the Barbarian barrel coming on through, dealing a decent amount of damage. However, the health is still in advantage for Jeebus here. For Inaraj here as the Poison comes down to try and even that up somewhat.
Do bear in mind, Jeebus has got the first game in hand. They need to win 3 to go on to the next round of play. Look at that Archer, though. That is ridiculous. Inaraj, beautifully done. Managed to steal it out.
Yeah, really well played, honestly, by Inaraj there. And again, took that advantage early and never really let go of it. Jeebus unable to find a way for that Hog Rider to do massive damage. And I think, honestly, kind of showing why sometimes the aggro deck doesn't quite work out into more kind of mid-rangey decks that want to kind of have a decent amount of removal and some good threats behind them as well, rather than focusing on a more control-y style. I think the most important thing for me here is as well that kind of we didn't see the Royal Hogs. I thought that would have been a lot more likely and a little bit more difficult to deal with as well, especially since we're not really seeing too much of log or anything of the sort, at least from Inaraj.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of, we're certainly used to seeing, from our time in the various different Clash Royale competitions, to seeing a lot more focus on the Hogs, but based on what we saw in that previous game, maybe that's going to be enough to scare people off it, because again, all of our players remaining in the competition, they're going to be watching every single game. If they see a game go poorly into sort of the general field, there's going to be some big questions on their mind of, do I want to be the player to make the same mistake I just saw happen?
It's hard, but sometimes you have to stick to your guns, and I think that's important. I mean, the problem is that less and less of the players who are still remaining in this tournament are Hog players inherently, so we're not going to likely see much more Hog, unfortunately, but at the same time, if you were, I would definitely encourage you to play it, but we're seeing so much focus on slightly off kilter decks from Inaraj, but also really strong, kind of standard, more control-y decks with a kind of meta focus, like we're seeing from Jeebus.
Of course, this is still going to be elimination territory. Fortunately, with that reset of the best of 5, it does mean we're kind of back to much more questions being answered. And I mean, now that we've got things back 1 game apiece, I'd imagine we're going to see maybe our players taking a few more risks, knowing that they can afford to gamble a little bit more on the individual games.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit more breathing room, giving these guys space to try and change around a little bit. And I think that's where Inaraj really does manage to deal with a lot of these problems. And I think we saw that in the previous series, right? Inaraj lost game 1. That's fine. Game 2 came in, and he looked a lot more confident, one with a slightly strange deck, but a good deck nonetheless, and then instantly kind of switched it up again, and swiftly, honestly, won games 3 and 4, and I think this is honestly Inaraj's wheelhouse. When they get momentum, the ball really gets rolling.
I mean, we're seeing the qualities of the players developing here. The whole thing with this point, the part of the competition, is we've already got our top contender decided before we've even gone that far. Even coming in today, we know exactly who we're dealing with. We now need to see players show they've got that flexibility, they've got that range, that determination and focus to give themselves a chance at challenging the very top.
Indeed. As again, we start off with a skeleton tower. This time, Jeebus is the one to switch things up with a bomb tower coming through here, and I think a lot better, honestly, if you ask me, than at the very least a Inferno tower.
Oh yeah, I mean, the bomb tower, that's an old classic as far as we're concerned. Such incredible ability. It kind of by design, it feels like it's something that should be kind of only really useful against a small subset of types of units, but as we've seen, it works really well against pretty much everything, even the stuff it can't actually hit.
Fisherman here can't hit anything, unfortunately, because of that invisibility. And now the Zappies start to move on forward a little bit. Back up here, and you can see the Fire Spirit tried to go on through, but it gets caught off guard. It's now piling more and more into that right-hand side.
Of course, this is exactly where the Skeleton Giant likes to be, where there's a big parley in it. The Zappies doing their darndest, but suddenly their single target damage is not fantastic. we will be seeing a Mother Witch coming out, which isn't ideal. Jeebus holding on to their elixir for quite a while. There comes down the skeleton army, but it won't stop the charge from getting through.
No, it won't stop it at all. That's really unfortunate. Good fireball here. You can mitigate most of that, and the guards will also deal a decent amount of damage. And that log not doing anywhere near enough because of the fact that these guards that can take one hit and then they drop their shields and then they become normal skeletons in terms of HP.
They did a pretty good job, though, of dealing with the Royal Giant. I mean, looking at how things are right now, we've got pretty even health across the board here. The right-hand towers from both players more vulnerable. We can see Jeebus has it in mind. They're going to keep chipping away.
And again, unfortunately for Jeebus, that King Tower gets activated in the exact same way. That's the thing I want to keep in mind here. That's what makes it so brutal, is constantly Iniraj is ready with that Fisherman.
Nice fireball across the field, but yeah, Iniraj is behind right now. Fisherman sneaking in the side. Might be able to actually get a good amount of damage done, so we're back to where we were before. The right-hand tower being all sorts of clammed up by having just too much stuff there to deal with.
Good fireball as well, pushes that Hog Rider a little bit forward, gets some damage down, and the Zappies, the Zappies are body blocking it somewhat here. The damage is still gone into the right-hand tower, and I mean, kind of focusing on positive elixir trades. I think that's what Jeebus is trying to do, but it's been so hard with the way the game's been going.
All right, charging in again. Iniraj hasn't got a ton of time left to work with, though I don't think the damage is serious enough on the right-hand side to make them worry too much about getting taken out early into overtime. We do have a giant mismatch this time round. We're going to need to see that tower do a lot of work.
Oh, the log again from Jeebus here, doing a great amount of work in keeping it back so that tower can really work its magic.
Hog keeps on charging through, pulled away by the Fisherman. Left-hand approach is not getting too much of anything done. 16 for Jeebus. Iniraj to 14, but this push is looking good.
It really is. The Royal Giant, though, attacking the bomb tower is very, very important here. Gonna start to wail on that right-hand tower and does actually come out positively in terms of HP now. But now the push is starting to mount on the right-hand side. That's something you've got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, again, we're seeing this doesn't seem to be a fantastic answer to the Skeleton Giant. The Zappies, again, are basically not doing anything. You have got the Queen making her way up, gonna get covered in skeletons very shortly. The Mother Witch survives with barely any HP, gets one hog through, and that will be a couple of hits.
And the Hog Rider starts to push on in, and this is something you got to keep in mind, right? Every time there's a lull, every time there's an opening, Jeebus really trying to drop that Hog Rider to get an advantage.
Fireball chipping away. You can see every single HP being accounted for. We think, I think every spell that comes through here could be the difference here in overtime. It's so close. We're down to around 50 HP difference between the two players, and though a single HP could swing it as the attack from Iniraj comes in the right-hand side, but evaporates just as quickly.
Oh my lord, you saw that Princess coming on through, getting taken down, and the good damage onto that right-hand tower now being there. You can see the Hog as well starting to ride through. That's an opening.
Gonna get pulled in by the Fisherman, but the Fisherman is gone right away. Doesn't get the hit on the tower, though. We're down to the deep depth
the
of
fireball.
overtime. The fireball comes through. Log in response. It's down to 5 HP. The log comes. The log hits, but no. It will still be Jeebus by a hair's breadth. What an end.
Spell after spell after spell to try and get on through there. Both players attempting to cycle through their decks, get to it just in the nick of time, and Jeebus comes out on top because of that original advantage. And again, actually making good usage of the Hogs this time. That's something you've got to keep in mind because it is really hard to do on occasion, but finding those critical junctures to drop our Hoggy boy and get that damage on the tower.
Well, I mean, we were talking about this before, the whole idea that people might start shying away from Hogs because of how the previous game went. It was an incredibly bold play from Jeebus to keep on playing that, to, see further than we did. Of course, these players are much better at the game than we are. They saw further what was going on, and they realized that the Hog wasn't the problem.
Nah, absolutely. I'm so excited to see the Hog actually succeeding there. And in kind of a very control-y shell, honestly, playing that kind of slow, steady, very nickel and dime, as I kind of mention all the time, going for that little bit of chip where they can, and obviously having those spells as well for that extra bit of reach, and dealing with a very pressure-heavy deck, right, in that Royal Giant, showing just how masterfully Jeebus deals with it. Obviously, it became a nail-biter. But at the same time, Jeebus seems to thrive in those, right?
So while we get things further in, of course, don't forget to use the !UEM at Clash Royale to enter in for our giveaway. Also in the chat right now, twitch.tv/team/UE is a place you can go and check out all of the different streams which are going on in the various different languages at the moment. So if you happen not to be a native English speaker and you're looking for one in your language, you might well be able to find it there. We've got 3 different streams, including a German stream, going on right now of this same content. So if that's your preference, then absolutely do go check it out there.
Absolutely. If you want to get involved in the conversation in any language, you can use hashtag UEM on Twitter to chat about the games. That's obviously for the entirety of UEM here. Sorry, not just UEM, UEM 2022. You can see it above my head, and it's a great way to discuss it with your fellow University Esports fans like myself and like Counterfeit.
Absolutely. If you've got anyone you're here to support in particular as we head into Game 4, for them to be able to come back after the game and see, their notifications lighting up means so much to them. So don't be shy. Let the players know exactly you're here to cheer them on, because even if they have got their focus on the game right now, they will see it afterwards.
They absolutely will. And I'm so glad that they do. Early days again in this game, and I'm really interested to see what's going to be coming out, because I feel like I have no idea what's coming from both of these players. Well, Jeebus doesn't show us too much. Obviously shows that they have the Princess Archer, and I feel like this is actually, the Queen Archer. This is actually one of my favorites of the heroes. I think it's probably the most effective and very skill intensive as well. When you use that invisibility, it can be super dominant.
Yeah, there's such. I mean, that's the thing. We were talking about skill expression for our players to get the chance, to drop down that champion ability and avoid. Like we saw before, we saw the Sparky being completely negated by just going invisible at the right time. I just love more and more of these cards that allow that kind of expression into the game.
Yeah, me too. I'm so glad that they added something like this as well. And I think it's really interesting, obviously, because at the same time as being something which, you have to get the timing right to activate and you show how strong a player you are, it is also something that I think benefits more aggressive decks, right? Where you can drop it, and while you're kind of cycling through your deck looking at other stuff, at the same time, as soon as something goes right, you can activate the ability and really get a massive advantage.
So, if this game is anything to go by, we will be expecting to see it being a battle of every inch counting. I mean, we did see this, this kind of happening during the games, that we kind of go from fighting for every HP to suddenly being an absolute brawl at the very end when, all the chips are down.
Visibility doesn't help so much with the poison, and unfortunately it ends at an inopportune moment here as the Electro Wizard buys a little bit of time, and so too does the Graveyard. Great call here from Inaraj as they buy themselves a little bit of space and they can start making a move here. Graveyard and the Skeleton King, that's looking scary.
Ooh, that's a lot of skellies to fill your belly. And I think they're going to be able to make a hit onto the left-hand side at the same time as well. Nice play from the French player Inaraj. Certainly keeping up the pressure.
Yeah, I don't think initially wanted to go over that left-hand side, really wanted to pile everything on the right, but the Fisherman drags it across, and I think Jeebus saved themselves a lot of HP by doing that.
Alright, so let's see what Jeebus has got next. This time they do get the Royal Giant in. That's a ton of damage on the left-hand side. I think they managed to sneak through while Inaraj wasn't able to respond because they were building up for this play.
They were prepping, and now they've got their chance to make a move forward. But the Hunter is clearing a lot of it, not too much damage from the Graveyard, at least early on here, as you can kind of see the Elixir advantage definitely in favor of Inaraj right now.
Fireball coming through, so again, we're looking for tower damage, we're looking for unit damage, and we've got both of them. Hunter hits through and does both as well, while also negating the cannon cart for the most part.
Yeah, doing a great job here as the Graveyard goes down again, and I think this is such a good tech, right? We've seen Inaraj use it before, kind of just obviously applying pressure with it, but most importantly, tanking at least 2 shots from a Royal Giant. That is worth its weight in gold.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, whoever wins out the series goes on to face up against Matteo for a place in our grand finals against Espan, still coming up this evening. The graveyard comes through once again. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference here. The Hunter doesn't do as good of a job as it did previously, so there is some damage done.
Pushing now on in the left-hand side, and look at that elixir, 5 elixir to deal with this problem. I really don't think that's enough, especially if it starts focusing on that tower. Importantly, the cannon cart is not down yet, and as a result, that, oh my lord, Royal Giant was just wailing on the tower. It's so hard to deal with sometimes, and they even used the graveyard to try and deal with the problem.
Yeah, that is so disappointing for Iniraj there. It's a strange thing to say they were really hoping their unit would die, but you're right, that made all the difference. The fireball is coming. This is a statement of intent from Jeebus. If you don't win right now, you're not winning at all.
And as a result, Iniraj was really trying to get aggressive. And you can see, again, using that Skeleton King to try and get some pressure, to push on in that left-hand side. But it feels like that graveyard was dealt with so easily. And despite the usage of tombstones, despite the usage of absolutely everything else that Iniraj was throwing at them, Jeebus still manages to find a massive amount of damage with that Royal Giant, and it all started with that mistake, right? Where there was interactions happening on the right-hand side. They were focusing on attacking aggressively, and they didn't notice. They weren't ready. They weren't prepared for the Royal Giant to really just absolutely destroy their left-hand tower and set the advantage rolling.
I mean, I think that's one of the things, I think that's why it's such a favourite amongst our players, the Royal Giant. Again, you're talking about skill expression, well, we've had the Queen talking about sort of the micro skill expression, the individual play. I think for the Royal Giant side of things, it really helps show your mastery of the game state overall, that you realize, again, the window opportunity is there to be able to sneak yourself through, and you only need to get 1 or 2 shots in when a game's that close, and that can make all the difference.
It really can. It's so scary. And the fact that it can attack from such a range is really something. And we said, right, that you want to bring in the Tombstone and such the like to try and deal with it, but even that didn't seem to do enough. And I think that's why we're seeing bits and pieces here and there used to really stop the Royal Giant, because I think it is a very strong unit. And as a result, it does dictate a lot of the pace and a lot of the ideas that currently sit within the meta. Even if it isn't being used, pretty much every deck you run and play is gonna have to deal with Royal Giant in some way. If you don't, and someone plays Royal Giant, you're like, oh, I look like a bit of an idiot because I didn't prepare for what is probably the most common deck in the meta. Maybe not necessarily so much on ladder, where you might see Hog Cycle, stuff like that, and Bridge Spam, but especially in competitive play, at least here, we've seen a lot of Royal Giant.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd be fascinated to see what comes up in our next round when Matteo takes to the field once again. Maybe we'd even see some sort of bans coming through. But as we do head to break again, getting ready for that next one, do make sure again you get in with the exclamation mark UEM Clash Royale. You can see the prizes up the top of our screen right now, including that very adorable plushie. Could be yours if you're one of our 8 winners today. So do make sure you enter in. Loads of opportunities to win. But for now, we'll be headed to break. When we return, we shall be seeing Jeebus go up against Matteo for a spot in the Grand Finals. Well, of course, the Grand Finals themselves with Espan coming up immediately following it. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back, one and all, to Arizona University Esports Masters, and welcome back to the almost final stages of our Clash Royale competition. Espan sits in waiting for a challenger to arise. Jeebus and Mateo, the last two candidates. Rook, this evening's been going past so fast.
Yeah, I am so excited for it, honestly. Jeebus has been showing us some fantastic play. And I mean, obviously, I haven't got to see Mateo on stream that, but he is one hell of a player as well. I'll give you that one for free. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing exactly how this one goes down. And we've got some interesting bans coming through as well. Mateo banning away Giant Skeleton here. And Jeebus banning away Recruit. Now, I think Recruit has always been Royal Recruits have been a very strong unit. So this does not surprise me, and especially when it's very difficult to deal with the double pushing. But the Giant Skeleton, at least to me, feels a bit surprising. How do you feel about it, Peter?
I think it's a real statement from, so it was Mateo who banned that one away. I think this really changes the field of play now that we don't have a guaranteed, sort of blocker. As we take a look at our lower bracket to see how everything's coming. So Mateo being dropped in from the upper bracket, they only lost against Espan, so they are the most likely player to be able to come out of this one with the win. It's Jeebus who's managed to fight the way back through the lower bracket. You can see they dropped in a couple of rounds ago, now with one more chance to make it into the top two.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to having Jeebus kind of show us what else they have in this wheelhouse and also bring that mortar out again. I think that Inaraj was correct in taking away that mortar from them. And I think going forwards, if you're not banging away, you're definitely giving us a chance to see what is potentially prime Jeebus.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, at this stage in the competition, you're battling to try and get yourself into top three. Of course, that's where our prizes will all lie from today. First, second, and third. So this game, we're breathing some real rarefied air here for our players. The pressure has got to be pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, it really does. They've got to be very worried about that one because, we're right at the very bitter end fighting out for those 1,000 euros. But at the same time, a lot of these guys, they've come through, they have that experience. And I think especially Mateo is a veteran player, has experience on the international scene, and has been a stalwart of the kind of Italian competitive scene for 6 years as well. Big deck variety on this player, and I'm looking to see more of that as well in the matchup versus Jeebus. That just has to be very exciting.
I mean, that's the thing, Mateo, they've been sitting here for a little while. The question I think becomes really here, Rook, is, has Jeebus been kind of warmed up now? Are they ready to kind of fight up to a capacity? Or have they already given so much of the energy just to get to this point that they'll become easy prey for Mateo?
I think that's the other part of it, right? Is as much as your deck variety can be fantastic, there's only so much you can show, right? And they have been forced out onto other decks. They started off playing the mortars got banned away. They then had to branch out a little bit more, show what else they had in the back pocket, showed the hogs, showed the other decks they were willing to play, and the Royal Giants and stuff like that. The question is how much more is there, and how much more is Mateo able to deal with?
All right, everybody, let's head to the field for the penultimate time in this wonderful competition. As we see ourselves, we've had ourselves a barrel of laughs, and our players will do just the same.
Indeed. And, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing exactly what Mateo's bringing out. Obviously, haven't seen them play just yet. We looked at their information, and they played pretty much everything. Obviously, the fair share of their decks, I think 12% of the time they play Royal Giant of a variant of some description, but the rest of the time, and a lot of different decks at 6%, at 4%, playing other different kinds of deck means that it is very interesting. It's not just things like, bridge spam, like mortar, like other stuff like that. It is a lot of different stuff that they've been experimenting with at the very least here, and both these players really are keeping their cool, neither wanting to commit here.
Gosh, this used to be the case a lot of the time previously in competitive Clash Royale, that we would see this basically, the players would run out the clock to 1 minute every single game. That had changed over time, but I think it's a mark of respect from both these players. They know that a single misstep at this point, a single showing of a strategy that they need to show, could spell the end for them. They taste how close they are to the finish line here of getting to the finals at all. I think we're going to have to wait 25 more seconds to see if indeed they are playing the same kind of decks. based on that first identical card.
Oh man, it's like two cowboys, sitting in a western, and they're both getting ready to draw their guns and go pew, pew, everywhere. But so far, no one's fired a shot, and all I can hear is Clint Eastwood in my ear saying something, and then it's just dust, a dust bunny rolling through the village.
All right, here we go. 1 minute has arrived, and with it, the play, all the resources from Jeebus onto the right-hand side. Nice use of the Goblin Cage to try and deny, but that's some good damage.
Yeah, massive damage. We may not have started for a whole minute, but we start off with a bang as the poison even goes on in here to chew through even more of that damage. 1000 HP already, and this is high tempo, if not with a large pause.
Oh my gosh, high tempo at high noon. Apparently Jeebus was feeling lucky, Punk. And that's a strong showing here. We knew they came into this one as the underdog. To get the first real hit in and for it to be that decisive, that's going to mean a huge amount for them.
Yeah, it really is. The Barbarian Village coming on through here. Going to start to go for that big push. 7 elixir invested. And God, I haven't at least seen in a long time. We had a couple of players who used it in the UK League a while back, but I say that was a while back. That was like 2 years ago.
Oh gosh, yeah, we've been through so much ground since then. They've reworked all the spawners, but look at the damage from Jeebus. They don't need to even use that Barbarian Hut to put together an attack. That's almost won them the game already.
Yeah, so much pressure coming through as well, and when it expires, it's going to bring even more to the table. It's going to go, there's 2 more Barbarians, and that left-hand side has to be worried as the Graveyard is invested here. But I think Jeebus is looking at this one and going, okay, how can I mitigate that, and how can I perform a counter-strike to that left-hand side? Just 600 health on it makes it really worrisome.
And that's the thing, Mateo can't afford to take their eyes off their left-hand tire for any amount of time, which does mean that Jeebus can do what they're doing here, which is, sneak through some extra damage on the right-hand side, try and draw away some defenders. Mateo needs to make something happen here, but they've got to get through nearly 3,000 health on both of the towers to get anywhere, and I just do not see it happening.
Cage comes out, and so does that Graveyard, trying to get that damage on the tower, but there are a lot of units waiting here. It's a real melee right now, 100, and it goes. Jeebus absolutely demolishes that one, and it was all off of that initial quick draw that Jeebus managed to find that advantage and just push on through. And I think Mateo did not exactly plan for things to go quite like that.
Oh my gosh, you're right, the tension was overwhelming, and Mateo, I'm kind of surprised that it went quite as badly as that, because we've seen it in our previous games, if you're willing to flip a coin and say, all right, let's see who's got the better hand, because not only are you holding everything until the last possible second, but you can't cycle your hand out, because you don't want to show your other cards either.
And it was read it and weep. That is true. I mean, you're cycling the cards out would give so much information over, and obviously would likely prompt kind of an opening, right? Go 2 elixir down in that 1 elixir time, and that can lead to a big push, especially off the back of the units we kind of saw, right? You invest 2, and the Graveyard comes down, something pushes in, like we saw. Sure, it's not the kind of 12 elixir push that we saw come in. It's still something pretty big.
Alright guys, so as we get ready for our next game, of course, our thanks again to Twitch, Student and Intel for supporting today's competition. Please do go show them some love if you've got the chance to do so before we get things back underway again. Once more, we are 1 step away from our grand finals, where Espan is waiting, lurking, with the advantage of a single game or single match in hand. Our grand finals will be best of 3, but Espan will only need to win 1 because of coming through the winner's bracket.
Yeah, it's true, but hopefully we get those 2 games, or at least 2 games coming on through, because I just want more Clash Royale action, and I want to see more of Espan, right? We've heard all this about it, haven't seen him on stream yet. Dominant player, really just demolishing a lot of these strong players, including Mateo. I think that was a 3-0 in the upper bracket, and I mean, if Mateo is going like this against Jeebus as well, I think there's nothing but good games coming.
I mean, what I'm particularly looking forward for in this particular series as well is to see Mateo come back, because we know, as you said, while they struggled against Espan, against everybody else, they were extremely dominant. So That first game, as much as it was, it came down to basically one play, I think if we can see it, us kind of break out into a more measured sort of standard Clash Royale, then Mateo will start looking a whole lot better.
Yeah, it really does. Wallbreaker's coming in here. Favorite card of mine is going to be able to deal with that
as well.
Oh, no, doesn't quite deal with the Inferno Tower. The second one didn't quite go in. But the drill will put a lot of pressure on. And I think that Inferno Tower is always an interesting one, right? We saw it work against Jeebas. But if there's something, let's say, for example, the Royal Giant coming through, it can be super effective. But if we're seeing a deck like we're seeing from Jeebas right now, it could be really, really detrimental.
Jeebas playing pretty close to the ground, playing a lot of cheap cards. So far, at least, a maximum of 4 elixirs. So they've got something in mind. The Wallbreaker is certainly a perennial UK favourite for just, providing that elevated level of threat. Anytime you don't have elixir to respond to them, you've got a chunk of damage on one tower.
Yeah. Low Dark Goblin getting some damage as well on that right-hand tower as see the push starting to come on through. Not a huge amount of damage from Mateo early on here. Apart from on that right-hand tower due to some of those earlier engagements, but a lot of information withheld by Jeebas right now, and the guards coming out does mean they could start to kind of maybe lead towards something with that fireball coming on in.
There we've got the Wallbreakers, a skeleton army of sorts, going to be somewhat negated, but you see the Wallbreakers, they cost 2, and they've taken most of the health away from the Inferno Tower, while Jeebas can just hold off. Of course, our friend the Hog will run into another Inferno Tower, so it's going to be tough to get future damage through, but it's again a little lopsided on the elixir trades.
An interesting one to be sure, but something you always got to keep in mind about the Inferno Tower. As much as I was saying it can be a little bit unwieldy at times, it is still a building. And that is fantastic, honestly, by dragging away units to focus on those buildings, dealing with them properly. And I think it's a great way to deal with a Hog Rider here, as the Earthquake, shown as Mateo's final card, as they just invest it onto that right-hand tower, trying to keep that health lower.
All right, so we're hog cycling all day, every day, as you said. The intervention of the building is always going to be hugely important. Never leave home without one. But of course, the Earthquake will always be a solid answer.
It will indeed. Good way to deal with that one, but not so effective here, right? You just need to use the tower to pull it away. It's not really going to be as kind of punchy as you would really want in a lot of situations. So, and obviously that Earthquake did get some nerfs recently, something kind of noted on, likely as a result of Mirror, but not much else.
But that's something we haven't seen so far. It doesn't look like our players are trying to explore the possibilities there. I suppose it is much more of an all-in strategy to try and mirror. As we get into overtime, we can of course see that Jeebas is behind right now. And we've got logs, we've got earthquakes coming in. This right-hand tower will fall sooner or later.
Well, indeed, damage going on again. The Hog slowly getting on through, and it is a matter of time, as you say. The question is, how does Jeebas find a way through? That's the really hard part, at least for me. Right, an investment here could be big, with a drill backup as well. That could be good too, and we see it starting to go on in. That Valkyrie's keeping a lot of units at bay, and with a log as well, that buys just a little bit of time, but good wall breakers here.
That is the combination that was required. That's going to put Jeebas into the lead. Of course, we know that we will be seeing spell damage still in the right-hand tower, but it might not be enough. The damage not quite reaching there to try and equalize. The wall breakers are coming. In comes the drill as well. The one breaker hits. That could be it.
That is it. The fireball comes on through. And what looked like an advantage, right, for the top side, for Mateo, was in the end nothing, right? Because the opening was made, because the wall breakers were there, and as you said, it makes that punish elevated. I was saying before that there's no real comeback mechanics sometimes in these decks, which want to nickel and dime you and slowly take you out of the game, getting an advantage and making it insurmountable. Now the problem here is when the wall breakers land, oh boy, do they land.
I mean, it's crazy the outsides effect the wall breakers have on the game. Just again, that threat was there. We saw it being neutralized again and again and again, but it's that one time it doesn't get neutralized, and suddenly that race you were trying to run with the other person becomes wildly unfair.
I think it's a really interesting card, right? Because if you're playing Hog Cycle of a description, there are better there are one drops, right? There are cards that bring down your elixir cost lower, but at the same time, nothing quite does what Wallbreaker does. And sure, they don't deal with problems as well. You can't use them to, let's say, deal with smaller units that are coming on in. But I feel, at least to mine, I'm a very aggressive player, to be sure. Having the option of those Wall Breakers just, I mean, literally blows the game open like we saw right there.
Yeah, I think they're such an incredibly good unit. We very rarely saw them, I think, because it does take a lot of nuance to be able to make the most out of them, but we'll see what's going to be coming up in game number 3, because so far, Mateo, we taught them up from the University of Udine, a nursing student who did really well in the upper bracket, so far not getting a single win so far in one game, away from being thrown bodily from the competition, or at least into the 3rd, 4th place match, but being denied the chance to compete for that big €1,000 prize, which of course is a lion's share of our 2,000 overall.
I mean, he's got to be nursing a headache right now after that one. He really felt like he had it, but those wall breakers were just so brutal. And I think for Mateo now, I think the problem is it is wide open, because you know that Jeebus can play literally anything, so you really got to go for comfort, and I think that's something you've always got to do, right? If your back is against the wall, go for the tried and true. Go for what you know works. Maybe go, I mean, some players like to go for, something blowout, for something cheeky, for something a little bit spicy, like, for example, Inaraj did a little bit in the previous one. But I don't know, even if it's something as mundane or as standard as Royal Giant, if it's what you're comfortable with, just go for it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. A small note about, we did get a chance to chat with Jeebus very briefly before this. There was one thing that really stuck with me out of what I was saying, which was, I don't really care who I face. I was asking them about their opponents. They consider themselves to be pretty much ready for anybody, and they're proving that it's not cocky if you can back it up.
Yeah, I am so glad to see that, and obviously a lot of confidence coming from their stint in the competitive scene, what they've been able to do all over the place, and I mean, it kind of shows just how relevant it is as the Mega Knight drops in and, well, loses half its health, sure, but still manages to push on forward.
A cannon cart, not a great answer. The Bat's going to do pretty well against the Mega Minion as well, so it's a little awkward in the early exchange, as we will be seeing, again, our drill coming through. Now, notable, of course, Mega Knight using some of that on-spawn damage, so not going to be quite as good of an answer to pretty much everything.
Nah, not quite. I mean, It's a relatively slow start, though, and there is that mortar I was talking about before, but it is going to get rid of it pretty darn quickly. Mateo really does like the bazooka.
I mean, I'm a huge fan as well. I mean, for the cost, you've got an enormous amount of work out of that Firecracker. Still, though, we've now got to start thinking about how Mateo's going to approach this game, knowing that they don't just have, exclusively to deal with the towers. They've also got to take care of these mortars as well.
It is something to keep in mind. I mean, they have a lot of ways to make really good pushes, but the Bandit gets denied at bridge. And now Jeebus is looking for a push of their own. However, the most important thing to keep in mind is obviously the Mega Knight is one hell of a threat. And when you've no longer got that invisibility available to your Archer Queen, it's not quite going to work out.
No, that's going to be a little frustrating. There's a jump coming in, so not going to be denied. Jeebus takes a lot of damage on the left-hand side. So far, we've seen a couple of things that Jeebus doesn't have a great answer to. Those bats up in the air, and now the Mega Knight on the ground.
Yeah, they already are. Oh, activating the King Tower. Big play there from Jeebus. Does mean that aggression is going to be a little bit more easy to mitigate. The wall breaker goes in. That's fine. This left-hand tower is a more pressing matter at the current moment.
Nice deployment of the mortar on the right, though, to try and spread that threat around. The Mega Knight, of course, a huge commitment in. Will be able to get hit from a long range, which is a little bit unfortunate there for Jeebus. They're losing control. They're going to have to deal with a Bandit charging in the right-hand side with a Mega Knight on the left.
Very timely zap there as well, making sure that that Mega Minion didn't continue to live through that one. And a good usage of the log as well to deny the Wall Breaker's damage, which could have been, I mean, not fatal, but sure could have been a nail in the coffin.
I mean, that left-hand tower of Jeebus, they have to be so careful there now. Mateo spreading things out. Note that Mateo hasn't taken any damage so far in this, the game that could send them from the competition. Their play has been clean as anything.
It really has. There's the drill, there's the pressure to keep on going, but it is dealt with at least for now. The log coming on in. Again, putting that pressure on the right-hand side, trying to force units to come on through to that one, but still can't find their opening. This time, Jeebus really is on the back foot, but 1 card remaining and 1 minute 40 on the clock. They have something to work with.
Do really see the mortar sneaking through the first bit of damage, but it really wasn't the ideal answer to the Mega Knight. Again, we've got 1 more card from Jeebus, which we've yet to see, as the wall breakers will be stopped on the left-hand side. Some good damage being done by the miner means that this isn't as one-sided as it was before.
Yeah, at least as it was before. I mean, there's about a 1.8k advantage right now for Mateo. And how they're going to keep that going is, oh my lord, now even more of an advantage. That right-hand side is definitely still where Jeebus wants to play as the cannon cart comes down to keep that pressure going. And as a bandit was invested, you would have thought it would have been a bit of a problem, but there's the Mega Knight making short work of that problem.
We've seen this again and again across the whole of tonight. If there's a problem card with no answer, it just shapes the entire game. The Mega Knight in again. The Mortar's not going to do anything. Both towers of Jeebus are in so much trouble.
They really are. 500 HP right now on that right-hand tower. And you wouldn't have thought that that was the one that started off on the higher health. Shows just how important and how impactful the pressure from Mateo is. As they push on the right side, the left side comes on in. They have to drop the Queen Archer to try and deal with the problem there, but there's not enough time to mount an offense. That poison is nowhere near impactful enough. You can see the Mortar looking for a chance to get some damage in, but how will it make it work? Will there be a chance? There's not enough units, not enough elixir to make that push happen in time. There's a lot of damage coming through, but I don't think it's quite enough, unfortunately, especially with that 200 health and the drill coming through. That's going to be Mateo sniping it away, and their first match going their way.
Oh my gosh, apparently Mateo was just waiting. They were teasing us with saying, oh, you know, maybe I'm going to get swept here. Or maybe instead, you know, it's time for serious business here in game number 3. That was just so incredibly well done. I love so much what we were seeing there, but I have to think for me, you know, the Mega Knight and the Bats, they feel like they shaped that game just by being there and being mostly unanswered.
I mean, that's the really interesting thing, right? As I was talking about the Inferno Towers and how ineffective they can be. Just as that happens, we see the Mega Knight come on through, which would have been fantastic in dealing with. But at the same time, right, if you don't have a lot of high damage or kind of ways to force pressure on the other side of the map, that Mega Knight can just absolutely run train on your opponents. If you don't have things like the Royal Giant, for example, right? If someone drops a Mega Knight and you drop a Royal Giant, well, you're probably winning because, first of all, your elixir cheaper, and also the amount of damage you're doing with that tower is so much more.
Still though, heading into game number 4, we still got to be thinking about this from Mateo, that as well as game 3 went for them, the question still remains, can they do it 2 more times in a row? It's going to take a pretty deep bag of tricks to be able to pull off that same kind of gameplay repeatedly.
It really is. I'm definitely interested to see what's going to happen. If you're interested as well, don't forget about hashtag UEM2022 to follow, discuss, and share all the information that you're feeling about this matchup. Definitely be interested to hear your guys' opinions. And don't forget, you can also follow us at UE Masters on Twitter. And what was the link as well that you were mentioning, Counterfeit, about the other streams?
Oh, that's right, yes, hopefully they'll show up in a second in the chat, but we have got streams across multiple different languages, so please do take a look out for that. If you're coming to this one and wondering if there are any different ones around the place, I believe we've got Spanish, German, and Portuguese, which we have to pop up in a second, or hopefully from the bot. We've got a little team running with each of the different ones, but if you want to look for the Spanish stream, it's at University Esports TB, German is University Esports _DE, and Portuguese, IMYGONTV2, as we get back into game number 4. This is still elimination territory here. There is no safety to be found.
No, Mateo's back is against the wall, but they performed well in the prior match. Why not again, as that Skeleton King is invested? But a lot invested by Mateo here, right? I think very much opting to go for invest elixir early rather than too late, because we saw that in that first game and it was a spectacular way to kick things off.
All right, we're going to see Jeebus mixing things up a little bit here. So you've got the minion horde coming in, a lot of small units. A Mother Witch would have a field day with this setup here, but it doesn't look like that's what Mateo has got.
I mean, she does deal very minimal damage sometimes, and that's why you don't see it in every composition. But when she's in the right place, she sure is in the right places. Both players opting into that mortar playstyle.
And I think the difference here is the magical archer. For Jeebus, just having something that can reach across the other side of the river is going to make all of the difference, and the cannon carts as well. It makes a lot of sense. I think we're going to be seeing a very building heavy game as the skies will be occupied, but not for long.
Positive elixir trade there, but the cannon cart popped before it could cross, which is a bit unfortunate if you are a Mateo fan right now. But the Italian player still keeps his cool, only has one card remaining invisible. Same for Jeebus here, as they're both playing a similar style, but showing their own twist on things in terms of the units so far.
So, I mean, we're going to be seeing our miner coming out again. I do like what we've been seeing. As much as we've been seeing a fair amount of Goblin Drill, it feels like it's just a little bit tougher to answer because those AoE units don't do so well. As we will have a brawl on that side of the field. The log will come out immediately, but Skeleton King was there to swipe up a few of those and then deploy his own batch of skeletons.
Yeah, so many skeletons piling on in here, but a lot of units invested as well. Now, the important thing in that is that was 6 elixir to try and keep this at bay.
The mortar's going to basically neutralize each other as, we're seeing real swarms on both sides of the field. You can only imagine once we get into overtime just how many different units we're going to have trying to plunder each other's bases.
Yeah, a lot of different ones coming right now as that skeleton army is split up. The Skeleton King pushes again on that left-hand side. A couple of units going onto that mortar to buy a little bit of space, a little bit of time. That volley wraps things up as well very quickly. But so much damage going into that Skeleton King, and that's why you sometimes see it be relatively ineffective, because it is not the tankiest of units.
No, you're trading off a lot for the opportunity to bring out a whole bunch of skeletons, but from what we're seeing from Mateo so far, their defensive line is real good. I mean, both players have the mortar, but the cannon cart, I think, is just so incredibly oppressive to try and get past and do damage. I mean, Mateo's behind right now, but I don't think any more damage is coming from Jeebus anytime soon.
No, I mean, they have the skeleton army, so if they manage to get hitting on a tower, that's great. But the problem is there are so many bits and pieces in Mateo's hand that make it very difficult to do so right now. Pushing on the right, pushing on the left, investing on both sides. But there you see it, the log, which makes that skeleton army so ineffective.
I think the minions from both sides are doing an absolute incredible job. The amount of skeletons that came out there, but just get cut down immediately. Now we're back to mortar wars. And I actually might have to revise my previous statement. While Mateo's defenses are very hard to break through, they're not doing a ton of damage, and that's going to mean they'll lose in a minute's time.
Yeah, they really have to up the pace right now, because otherwise they will go down. And that miner going onto the backside is keeping that advantage so heavily in favor of Jeebus right now. You can see that pushing as well onto the right-hand side means that I think Mateo has to be at least somewhat worried about it. Minions of their own dropped, and, well, that push is denied yet again. They're not really getting exactly what they want.
No, there's just nothing being done. Mateo is one game from being eliminated. If they don't fund the damage in this next 35 seconds, they are gone from the competition. This would be a big all upset. There's so many bodies on the left-hand side. I think Jeebus is going for the kill shot, but they won't find it quite yet.
Yeah, the minions do a good job in cleaning up all of those melee units which can't attack into the sky. Very, very important there is now they start to push onto this right-hand side to buy time. I think Jeebus went, okay, I wanted to get the tower, but, you know what, I'll play for overtime instead, play for the sensible decision, and it looks like they're going to be knocking Mateo out of this competition in emphatic order.
Ooh, there is no end, but the tiebreaker says it's so. Mateo does not get the damage through, and that will be Jeebus taking themselves some pretty impressive wins here to punch through the lower bracket. Apparently, they just keep going from strength to strength.
And I mean, it's not like that wasn't close. It was only 500 health difference. And I know we've had some very nail-biting games that might not necessarily matter to some of you, but 500 health considering the situation. If we didn't see Jeebus change tack away from that left-hand tower and invest onto the right-hand side, they would have lost the game because there was so much pressure going on there. And it was nicely done by Mateo to almost take him down, but it feels unfortunate for them. Obviously, Mateo only lost 2 games right at the end and couldn't quite crack that top 2.
All right, guys, well, thanks to our sponsors, Twitch, Student, and Intel, we will be heading to a break for a final time here today. We've been teasing you guys with this possibility for quite some time, but Espan in the Grand Finals now has their challenger. Jeebus, we'll see what they're made of. Of course, before we do head to break, do make sure that you're getting in your giveaway codes in the chat. I believe we did just have a winner come through, so congratulations to JJ. But !UEM Clash Royale. There's still more chances to win the merch you can see in the top left of your screen. So do not miss out. We shall return after the break. The Grand Finals awaits. Welcome back, one and all, to Amazon University Esports Masters for our final, well, for the final time, more or less, because we've got our grand final where Espan has been waiting all evening long to see who their challenger will be. Look, for anyone who was just joining us from the Grand Finals, who was it? Who was strong enough to defeat all other comers and make it here to the very pinnacle?
Boy, oh boy, it was Jeebus. Impressive performance as well, striking on out from that lower bracket, taking down their friend in Timmy. They're moving on, taking down the oddball Inaraj and the absolute maverick Mateo, and finally finds themselves here versus Espan with, honestly, a pretty dominating performance, at least in some of them, but also showing fallibility, most importantly, right? They lost a game versus Inaraj, they lost a game versus Mateo, but all the while, they come back again and again and again, and they're gonna need that tenacity if they want to take down Espan here, because even if they win the first best of 5, they've got another one in tow as well.
Yeah, it's a huge uphill battle to have to go into. You know, as I said, Espan completely undefeated in his series so far. They did take some game losses, but of course, Timmy, the only player who took them to game 5, has already been eliminated, so we have to we have to see what it's made of. Certainly, Jeebus has shown no fear whatsoever of any opponent up until this point. They certainly came to this one with a lot of confidence. I think this first game of the best of 5 is going to be a real make or break for that confidence, though.
I think it really is. I mean, honestly, even though they've lost a couple of games, Jeebus has a lot of momentum. And as we said, right, you're looking over at Espan and you're like, okay, well, you might have done practice and stuff, but you haven't played yet today. So if he wins game 1, he's in such a comfortable position. I think Espan really will just roll over Jeebus if that happens. I don't want it to happen. I want us to get 2 series in here, but at the same time, Espan has been looking strong so far this tournament. I don't see any reason to change that.
Espan, the German from the Humboldt University of Berlin, studying computer science mathematics, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. It's a really long course title there, so presumably quite a lot of different things. So they've had a lot on their mind. And of course, we talked about this earlier on, though. Well, Espan said they haven't had the competitive tournament games today. What they have had is unmetered access to every one of Jeebus's games on stream to try and formulate the perfect strategy to get that one series win they need.
I think it's really interesting as well, right? Because I mean, we said before, Jeebus is a veteran, they're a coach, they understand the game very well, they have a lot of decks in their back pocket, but how deep are those pockets? That's the question to me, right? We've seen a lot of different decks from them, and maybe there's more left in there, but I think that very much remains to be seen. And they themselves banned away Drill. Not a surprise, we've seen a massive amount of Goblin Drill so far this tournament, and it's been very effective too. And Espan banned away that giant skeleton, which again is something that I think Jeebus is using very well to deal with a lot of different units.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before, with the bomb tower, let alone the skeleton giants, just being a great way of sort of making sure that you've got an answer of some kind. It's not the perfect answer to nearly anything apart from, I suppose, giant swarms of units, but it's still a pretty solid answer to everything. When you are going into these games more or less blind, particularly in game 1 where you've got no idea what kind of deck someone's going to be bringing out, even if, Espan has been watching all the other games, I really hope, as you said, that Jeebus has got something to surprise us with here in game 1 and really give them the momentum they need to win 2 series in a row.
I think it'd be super exciting, and especially seeing Jeebus kind of play around a little bit, considering they've generally been sticking to meta decks of some description. I'm really looking forward to it for sure. But the question arises is, what are we going to see from Espan, right? We've kind of seen a decent amount of different stuff from them over the course of the tournament so far, and I think the fact that they've made it to the finals with the minimum number of games means kind of is exactly what we were saying earlier, but in opposite, there's so little information for the other players on this guy. I mean, maybe there's communication between to members of the tournament kind of saying, oh, they played this, they played that, but even then, it's not quite the same as kind of having a VOD to read and understand how somebody plays something. Like, you would know that Jeebus is really good at using log, loves to use giant skeleton effectively to trade around, likes to play mortar, likes to play a hog as well in a very trade-focused style. We don't know any of that about Espan, and that's what makes it a bit of a problem, I think, for Jeebus here.
All right, everybody, it's time to open up the grand finals for today. Espan at the very top of the heap. Jeebus, the challenger, looking to spit in their face and take their crown. We'll see if this first game can really set the pace for the series.
Hog going straight on in, but there's the tornado, and that certainly will set the pace for this round at the very least. And they activate the King Tower immediately.
Well, Espan, they're going to find themselves just a little bit lost and confused. So they've got the damage being snuck through on the left-hand side as well. Jeebus, they've had the answers so far. If they can keep up this early play, then they're in a very good spot.
Well, indeed. A lot of cards shown on both sides already. Access to that Queen Archer, which Jeebus has been using fantastically so far. Definitely interested to see where the investment goes, as left tower seems to be it for Jeebus right now, but responses on both sides. There's the mirror we were talking about for Espan here, using those guards double to try and make that push happen, and the Hog Rider going on in to try and get some damage, but there's a tornado that's absolutely huge.
Oh boy. Yeah, that tornado is doing work. Jeebus is going to be keeping that in cycle, I think, pretty much the rest of the game. It's just completely negating the card, but yeah, we were talking about this before. Mirror. We thought someone was going to surely try and bust out, if only for the surprise factor. This is going to be the game. This is the time. This is the venue where you need to make sure that you've got everything you can to try and throw your opponent off.
Really do. Jeebus getting pushed on the left again. Both those quite low now, considering how things went, at least initially. I think Jeebus is very happy that that tornado pulled away because those healths got rather low, considering the fact that there weren't many units on it for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed by the amount of damage Espan's about to do here. Both of those towers down to around 2k. Espan, the right-hand tower, is very healthy indeed. Instantly dropping down the Inferno tower to try and stop any further aggression pushing forward. Does take a fair chunk of damage, and most of the units are traded, but we've got a good push in. The special delivery creates some space, but it's still Jeebus doing work.
It is indeed good damage on that left-hand tower for Jeebus, but again, one push could easily change that. Dark Goblin coming on out. Going to be able to deal with that graveyard pretty well until the Barbed Barrow comes on in.
Baby Dragons have been doing a good job of stripping off those shields before it comes in. You can see both players, particularly Espan, playing pretty conservatively here as the Hulk will continue to push in. Espan, the IMP student, actually managing to get a good hit in there again, and it's going to be a mirrored Hog Rider, goes up to level 13 and doesn't quite land.
That's what I was expecting to see, honestly. Hog, get tornadoed, Hog again. You know what? If at first it doesn't succeed, absolutely. But the graveyard does a lot of damage here, and I think Espan is going to really need to up the tempo if they're going to win this game. They've got to get aggressive here, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, down to sub 1,000 on the left-hand tower is not where you want to be. There we go, Tombstone coming in. It does go down quickly, but it absorbs nearly everything. And now we've got a counter-attack building.
We do indeed, a lot of damage going through, and again, taking down that Inferno Tower in short order. However, importantly, that Queen disappears to the Valkyrie.
Oh my gosh, even post-nerf, Valkyrie is doing absolute work, even just as a roadblock. Hog goes in, Hog gets intercepted. We'll take it through with a couple of hits, but of course those skeletons spawning in will finish off the job very quickly. Left-hand tower's in trouble. Espan is almost gone.
Yeah, a little bit of reach, a little bit more, and that will be done. They've got to invest now. They've got to commit. Otherwise, things will end oh so quickly. You see them starting to push on forward. There's the double hogs, but it gets eaten up again. Gummed up, denied. And there's another poison. I believe that is enough damage, especially with the tornado. And Jeebus picks up game one with, I mean, a relatively standard deck, but applied very, very well versus Espan playing the hog.
Oh my gosh, I really like what we were seeing there. That was exceptionally well played there. Except, you know, you need to seize the momentum here. I think that was done extremely well. You could almost see from the way Espan was playing how sort of the confidence was ebbing and flowing throughout that game. And I think the moment they suddenly realized as they came towards the end there that everything had just fallen to pieces before their eyes, I think that's going to affect them for the rest of the series and potentially the second Grand Final series to come.
I think the important thing to keep in mind, right, if you're Espan, is to keep in mind that I know it's such a dismissive thing to say, but that's a warm-up game, right? In your mind, at the very least, it's a warm-up game. You're prepping for the next one. It's fine. It caught you off guard. The mirror hog didn't really work out. It can be tricky to get hog to work sometimes. I mean, we're looking over at Jeebus, and they struggled the first time they pulled it out on stage. And now, well, maybe they switch up. Maybe they stick to it. I mean, last time we said that we'd like them to switch away from hog. It doesn't seem the most comfortable, but if you're convinced, absolutely, hard commit to it, go for it, catch them off guard, get them this time, and show them just how strong the hog riders can be.
I'm really fascinated to see, how things develop here for Jeebus here. See there's some support for Jeebus in the chat at the moment. The amount of mental fortitude it's got to have taken to even get to this point is impressive in itself. So know that you're going to have to win 2 series, I think for a lot of players, that's going to be an overwhelming obstacle to go up against the best, not just win 2 series in a row, but win 2 series in a row against the best player in the competition up until this point. That takes a particular kind of mentality to even attempt it.
It really does. But I think you gotta have that mentality, right? If you're looking to win, you've got to be able to go for things. Otherwise, you kind of just lose track of those moments. And I think that's something that Jeebus does, is he is one track mind. He is focused on how he has to win. Obviously kind of well aware of the rest of the board, but knows, hey, here's my out. That's why we've seen so many clinching moments where it's been the absolute tippy top of time, but still the range is there, the hits are there, and I would be not surprised to see that again.
I mean, we're still holding our breath to see if Espan can come back in. Of course, 3 games is all it takes to end a particular series, and for Espan, they only need the 1. That's the wages of what they've done previously to get through the winners bracket in the way that they did. It's an enviable position for any player to be in at this point in the competition with so much on the line. 2,000 euros of prizes for our players here today, and of course the lion's share of that going to our first place finisher.
1,000 for the first place, in fact. 600, I believe, for the second, and 400 for the third. So that's for Mateo. And obviously the loser of this one getting that 600. But 1,000 euros. Pretty good. That could get you a couple of gems.
Well, that's the thing as well, to be able to compete on this kind of, on the kind of European stage like we've got here, and to be able to walk away with 1,000 euros, that's something that kind of, can form part of a player's career that's, particularly significant in the future to come, to be able to say, I'm just, UAM champion, no big deal. Mm-hmm. It is a big deal, let me tell you.
It is indeed, as we're seeing already. Skeleton Army committed to be able to make short work.
Alright, so we're seeing something a little bit different here. Espan, maybe they have got some surprises in store.
Yeah, I'm certainly excited to see more of that. And I mean, again, the bats, I think, are a unit that are often slept on. Flying just on a unit just makes it so hard to deal with sometimes. So Royal Hogs come on out on that left-hand side. So right continues to get pushed, but that, oh my lord, Inferno Dragon deals with it swiftly.
Yes, swiftly and justly. We're going to be seeing our minor friend just managing to deal relatively well with the skeletons, while a good pull away from the other miner will bring in the Inferno Dragon out of play for a little while. But I'm liking what we're seeing from Espan so far, even if there's been a few little holes in their play that Jeebus has been abusing.
Indeed. I'm so glad as well to see the Mighty Miner finally come out. I believe the only one we haven't seen until now, and you were saying you were hoping you get to see it. Obviously, a lot of flexibility on that unit. Interesting to see how it goes. As Skeleton Army to back up the Skeleton Knight / King. It's a good shout.
Yeah, I mean, well, of course, the Mighty Miner getting the recent buff to mean that they are able to get across the field without getting knocked back or interrupted by anything else, and also having the cheaper use of their ability as well. I think there's some real potential there which we haven't maybe seen explored as the Hogs go wild on that left-hand tower. The Mortar is not doing enough.
It seems like the Mighty Miner might not even be needed, honestly, as those pigs munch away on that tower. And as you say, right, the Mortar wants to play a slower game plan, wants to kind of, chill and play the game as they want. However, the Hogs and this style of deck with the Mighty Miner definitely wants to play a lot slower here as the Mighty Miner starts to push on in, starts to deal with some of those units. He's getting ready to maybe get some damage onto that right-hand tower, if not for the Musketeer.
Yeah, I mean, we can say the Miner's been doing a pretty good job of sort of engaging with anything. But I suppose what we are not really seeing here from Espan is a ton of individual units which will let our Skeleton Knight friend get off that massive, massive Skeleton Horde that they'd love to have. The poison's ticking on the left-hand side, so we know this is going to go Espan's way if this kind of trajectory stays in place at all.
Yeah, Skeleton King using their ability now, getting cleared up a decent amount by the Zappies as the the Miner comes in, but is instantly gone. That's very important as he teleports over to that right-hand side. Now push will come on in as well. The Inferno Dragon looks for a chance to push. Doesn't quite make it over the edge. However, that Royal Hogs will give them a chance as they're munching away on that one. Poison goes on 3. Inferno Dragon barely interrupted as the log goes in.
Yeah, the Hogs have been absolutely punching above their weight here. We see Jebus doesn't have a good answer. The Zappies, they're holding down the fort on Espan's side of the river. All of these skeletons, they're getting cut down so quickly, and the Miner's actually doing a surprisingly good job at dealing with them.
Yeah, there's the poison again on that left-hand tower. Not quite dead yet, but the log will absolutely finish it and strikes right on back. Much faster win this time as Espan takes a game 2.
All right, there we go. A different approach, a different champion. Maybe this is Espan starting to get themselves into the driver's seat a little bit more. I mean, for Jebus, getting that first win I think is very, very important, but I think for Espan, if anything, they're going to want to try and reduce the amount of variability in the games. We want a lot less coin flips from the German side of the things because they are in the prime position. They do not want to make the game, this series into a series of coin flips, as unlikely as it is for Jeebus to actually win that.
No, they really don't want to opt into it. I think it's an interesting one to be sure, right? You definitely don't want to be waiting a minute in order to pile absolutely everything in like we saw in the previous series. I think that's something which, sure, if you're confident in your kind of strategy, in your units and in your deck to really succeed in doing that, that's fine. But I think for the most part, we're not seeing a lot of decks, at least in the current meta, really do that. So it was a surprise to see it happen. I think it's a one-off. Now, I really like the fact that we're seeing varying types of Hogs coming on out from Espan, and I like the fact that they're trying to keep up that pressure, and I think swapping around a little bit, trying to catch them off guard was a really good shout. Honestly, Hog Rider probably would have done a very similar or the same thing, but at the very least, you're getting that bit of extra damage through while also making yourself more vulnerable to AoEs, but importantly, there was no fireball or anything on the defensive side, on Jeebus' side, which was a surprise. Oftentimes they're taking log, yes, but they're not taking much else to back it up. Obviously, you got the idea of small spell, big spell, but we weren't seeing much of big spell.
No, and I mean, that's the thing. It's again one of those conundrums you're putting yourself in where ideally you've got a deck where you can really kind of hit that point multiple times of saying, do you have an answer for this? If not, how about do you have an answer for this? If that question is ever no, then the game can be over right then and there. 1-1 in our grand finals. Do remember, Espan only needs to win this one series. Jebus needs to win 2 in a row. Having lost that first game, Jebus fans gotta be sweating just a little bit.
Mortis, the man of the hour, as the Wallbreakers try to get in, but unfortunately for them, the Skeleton King charging on up and looking for a way to move on in. They have the ability to activate it, and they do just that as the Golden Knight, well, manages to dash around a little bit, doesn't quite finish anyone off, and will trade in the end with that Skeleton King.
Oh my gosh, is that... I'm just trying to figure out here. Is this because the Golden Knight is supposed to be dashing? Is that why he dashes?
Yes.
Oh, worst day ever. There's some things you just don't want to realise, Rook.
Yeah, no, I know. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I mean, we like our puns. I can't blame them for making them too.
Oh my gosh. All right. To the more serious business then. Espan gonna light up the skies, bring out their particular skins to show they are serious mode. Of course, Miner coming back in again. We've seen that be a super consistent card for nearly everybody who's played it.
Yeah, very valuable. Can do a decent amount. Can also be just played as a defensive unit sometimes. And you know what? It works. Skeletons start to come on in here. And here is the dashing man himself as the volley really cleans up a lot here.
There's the fireball you were talking about before. Espan's not leaving anything back at home. Activates the ability to try and get a charge in and finds it as well. This is a real good early game for Espan. And of course, we haven't even talked about the wall breakers there. The perennial threat.
One misstep and Jeebus could go down. He knows it. He used it himself and is very well aware of quite how potent it can be.
I do love myself a Dark Goblin as well. For a 3-cost unit, it's so fragile, but the damage output can be truly ludicrous.
Skeleton army invested here, able to deal with that unit very, very quickly. There is a volley to potentially deal with the problem, but it's not lining up exactly as they want to. However, we do see the Golden Knight coming on through, and we'll be able to deal with those in relatively short order here.
So we've got arrows and we've got fireball against Jeebus. I still wonder. Oh, hello, wait a second. This is changing everything. We've got the bomb tower coming in. That's going to really mess with any possibility of seeing the mortar get through long-term damage.
Managed to clear up that musketeer, and we are heading to overtime as the damage starts to pile on in again as the Skeleton King waiting at the back right here. The Skeleton Army to back him up. A little bit of a push on the left-hand side, and if Jeebus sees an opening, they will commit towards that.
Dashing through the snow and managing to get some good hits in. I'm loving the bats from Jeebus as such a great answer to pretty much everything, but now we've got the bomb tower coming through. It stands in the way of the mortar. We've got so many skeletons coming in and a miner hitting the tower on the right-hand side, but Espan, I still think they're in a pretty good spot.
I know, they're only 500 health, well, about 500, 400 health behind, and with one big push, that could easily change, especially when you've got wall breakers behind and you've got the Dark Goblin. Those things rack up the damage, as the wall breakers instead used to buy that little bit of time, which can be oh so handy.
We have got a mortar running from Jeebus as the wall breakers hit. Look at the amount of damage for a 2-cost unit. That's craziness. But on the right-hand side, the miner is working away. The mortar is hitting as well. The fireball will take some of the bite out of that. But I think the damage has been done. Espan is all kinds of done, down to 10. And that's the win, putting Jeebus back in control of the series.
Jeebus in now series point, looking for that bracket reset against Espan, and again showing us just how strong they can be. And it felt like there was a chance, right, that Espan could have taken that one, but Jeebus just shot it out left, right, and center with some fantastic pushes and really being able to deny a lot away.
All right, guys, so as we get deeper into our grand finals, again, you can head across to twitch.tv/team/UE Masters. The link is in the chat right now. If you want to check out one of our other multi-language streams going on right now across the entirety of Europe. This has been such a good final so far, though. I have a feeling, Rook, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but I'm hoping we're going to get to see this one go all the way to Game 5, even in this first series.
Oh, I really hope so too. And if you guys want to express how you feel about this matchup, use the hashtag UEM2022 on Twitter and on Facebook in order to get involved in the conversation. Always important to do. And don't forget, you can follow our Twitter at UE Masters. Obviously, the M stands for Masters. That's why I'm bringing it out like that. But yeah, no, fantastic way to get involved with the community and obviously with this entire event, which has been an absolutely baller one so far.
Of course, if you like cute doggos, that's another reason to go check out the UE Masters Twitter, because if you missed them before, Bobby, very sweet doggo, is on there in video form, giving us the big old yawn and then looking me in the face, which is not normally a concern one has as a caster when you're casting live on stream.
No, normally, I mean, I say never work with kids or animals, but here, Counterfeit is like, yeah, I'll bring in the animals.
Bring in the clowns as well, why not? Yeah, regrets. If you've missed out on the doggos, do go check out twitter.com/UE Masters. There's a clip on there. I have had to banish probably since you started actively destroying my setup here today, so couldn't leave her anymore. So only a limited amount per evening is allowed. But as we get onto our next game, there's no end to the amount of action here. In our first series, we're still waiting to see if Jeebus gets to go for the second go around and a second chance to call themselves champion.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one as well. I kind of want to have a quick look at the bans again. I believe it was Skeleton Giant and Drill banned away here. I think it's such a good shout from Jeebus, right? Because from the way that Espan has been playing, I think this Drill is super good, right? Constantly applying pressure, looking for ways to get aggressive, using the Miner. I think that Drill right now, at the very least, is a bit more effective than the Miner, honestly. And that's why I think if that had gone on through, I think Jeebus would be in a very different situation. I think even with the Giant Skeleton, though, Espan really would have been able to lay on that damage.
Oh, thank you for Luvariteru. Oh my gosh, I didn't know how to say that name, but when I started, I still don't know by the time I finished. Thank you for posting that in our Twitch chat just to spread the doggo love around the place. Let's get into the place, though, where there is only battle and a chance to call yourself champion. Espan still with the 1 series advantage. Let's see what else is in their bag of tricks.
Well, in Jeebus' bag of tricks, there is a hog, and it gets tornadoed into Espan's King Tower. Now, I think I've seen this happen somewhere before, and in their bag of tricks is also Esparky.
Espan brings up the Esparky. It is going to be an S-party, but the big problem here is how do we get onto the Princess Towers with this Sparky when there's a bomb tower in the way?
Yeah, that's the big question, and a Giant will do the trick, will tank up the majority of that. It's a very high elixir investment, and with a Valkyrie in the face, that's not exactly what you wanted to be, but with 6 elixir invested into Sparky, you're not too hard done by.
Alright, so we've seen already that there's a pretty decent answer there already. It's the Earthquake come through. We've actually seen the entire Hog Cycle deck of Jeebus coming out straight away. Still a few more surprises in store for Espan, who is definitely playing a lot with some, with some pretty big units to make some heavy hits in.
I don't think it's a bad shout at times, but against this low to the ground deck, it's going to be very, very, very difficult, and a lot of low costs here as well. 2 separate 1 costs and those 3 cost spells alongside the log. Makes it very, very scary.
I think that's what we're seeing from Espan here is, normally you wouldn't expect to see the Sparky just being thrown out because there's so many more chances to deal with it. I think what we're seeing here is Espan's trying to draw the game out by having these fights on Jeebus' side of the river rather than trying to wait for them to come to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's a bad shot at all. Sparky's looking for a chance to drop on in. Still charging up, wants to hit them. We'll get rid of those skeletons, but that's not exactly a positive chance for them as the grenade is situated. The bomb is going to come on through, but the Valkyrie is still on top and still causing problems.
That Valkyrie is so ridiculous. This is the chance for a defensive Sparky, which we'll usually see. On the defense, Sparky is heinous because there's no way to stop it from firing.
No, it's so darn difficult. But look at that health of the right-hand tower, 1.4k. And it feels like Jeebus hasn't even been on that side and is still managed to rack up the damage so darn easily.
Well, I think for Espan, if they can get to the later game to get to overtime without taking too much damage, that's when they can start bringing together their more expensive deck to get on these unstoppable pushes. Because you can see Jeebus doesn't have a way of dealing with that apart from the bomb tower.
Giant going in the bottom right here. And again, Sparky clearing up 1 elixir at a time.
Oh, come on! That's an incredibly efficient trade, though.
Yeah, it's so darn good for Jeebus there. Manages to find a lot, and the Earthquake again chunks out those units while still chipping away at that bottom right tower.
Get down to 1,000. Espan has been trying to control the bleeding as much as possible, but ticking away. Jeebus has been playing this so darn well, using every inch of leverage they can get to buy themselves those individual points of damage.
The Sparky looks for a chance to move forward again, but its health is so low in comparison to how slow it is, so it's really going to struggle to make a mark here. Unfortunately, I don't even think it's hit the tower, maybe once, if all.
No, it's not looking good. I mean, there's so many individual small units that can be thrown out, and the Valkyrie, there just doesn't seem to be a way to deal with it. The Heal Spirit does buy some extra time for the Giant on the other side of the field, but all that means is it trades across from the bomb tower. The Hog will hit the tower itself, I think maybe a couple of shots in, but there's 185 on Espan's right tower. This is surely a done deal.
Look at that. He's cycling through quickly as possible, trying to just hit it, going for it, investing as much as they can. There is the Earthquake again. And Jeebus has... Yeah, there we go. Jeebus has taken us through to a bracket reset 3-1 here over Espan. Now, I think the question remains, does Espan have the knowledge, have the download to take down Jeebus now, or will he just continue and complete his reign of terror?
I mean, this is honestly astonishing stuff. If I'm in Espan's position here, I'm starting to get really worried here. To go down 1-3 in that first game, where, you know, by all rights, you should have been going into the situation saying, this is the end of the competition. I've done the work already just to get to this point. I am ready to receive my crown. Then to have it so rudely taken from you, I don't know if that's going to be pretty hard to recover from.
I think it really is, honestly, especially with the way Jeebus has been doing it, right? A lot of these rounds have been pretty dominant, honestly, I feel, at the very least. The only round which was close, I feel, was Espan's round, the one that they picked up. Other than that, it's kind of been, yeah, you've been trying, you've even been getting cute with it. You know, you brought out the Sparky, but even that isn't enough, it feels like.
Yeah, I was so impressed by the counterplay to Sparky that Jeebus was putting out there. You know, just again and again redirecting, and the Firecracker as well, keeping itself just outside of Sparky's range. It felt like Sparky could never get a foot into the game at all. I think it was something of a gamble there for Espan to try and get back into the series, but whether, you know, it's just unfortunate or a read from Jeebus, the right tools were there to take down Espan.
It was indeed. Now Espan really is on the back foot, wanted to take it, but the momentum is now so far against them. Was it a warm-up? Well, we'll find out and see if they're warmed up in the next series, which will be coming away.
Alright guys, so we might be going to break, we'll see. Our players probably are going to be ready again fairly...
Oh, there's no break. Oh, apologies.
Oh no, we're being told the action's too hot to be contained within the break. We need to release it right now before it melts our servers.
We do indeed. Now I'm excited, honestly. You know, I was thinking, all right, we got to wait for a little bit. Sure, I can go get some water, sort all that stuff. But I really want to see these games just going like that. And like some of them and finishing. I mean, we've seen some great aggression from Espan. I think it's what we need to channel. The problem is it just feels like, at least at the moment, Jeebus has his number, has the understanding of how to deal with that hog pressure. I mean, look, it's been around a long time. A veteran like Jeebus has to know how to deal with it, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if we're talking theoretical ground, you couldn't do much better than the Portuguese player. You know, as we talked about repeatedly, they've got the theoretical background for absolute days. They've probably, I'm certain they've guided players through this exact same situation many, many times before. As much as Espan did really well early on, I hope what we see in the final series is, as standard a decks as possible. I want to see these two measured up against each other and know definitively this is the better player, not just that you brought out the wrong deck at the wrong time.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way it sometimes can go. Interested to see if I'm not quite sure if we're getting another set of bans. We just got a message in chat.
Good question.
I'm interested to see if that's true. If so, will they stick with it? I think Jeebus is absolutely on the money with the drill ban, but could Espan ban away something a little bit more? I think it's a big question. You know what? I think it's a greedy one, but a good ban would be Log. Now, I know, right? That's of some more aggressive decks, but we've seen again and again, Jeebus is so good at using it. If you take that away, it also means that things, I don't know, like, for example, the Hog can itself get onto the towers that little bit easier, be knocked away a lot less, and you can buy so much less time.
Honestly, I think that would be really fascinating if that does end up being the case. Certainly because Log has been such a defining part of the meta, and if you're looking to try and throw off people from the game, then that is a way to do it. But no, we are being told there will be no new bans. We'll be sticking with our bans from before. So that will be Goblin Drill. That will be Giant Skeleton. We shall have our logs today.
Oh, unfortunate. I would like to see Giant Skeleton come out, honestly, for Jeebus. I think that would be actually a really nice opportunity for them to just, honestly, steamroll over. We really need to see more from Espan to try and shut this one down. And I think maybe even a complete paradigm shift. I was saying I want the aggression, but if Espan feels comfortable with it, why not Royal Giant? It's the simple answer. If you're not winning, why not Royal Giant? It can work so well. It's a strong deck for a reason, and it's not. It can be easy to play. At a high level, nothing is easy to play, unfortunately. It's not quite that simple. And interacting it and playing it against a player like Jeebus is certainly going to be hard, but presumably, Espan has the practice. I mean, you can't be at this high level player without having played at least a decent amount, I feel, of Royal Giant, at least at the current moment. And if not, there's a lot of different pieces which you can kind of apply from other decks. Sure, you're not cycling through constantly, but you are applying the spells and the units in a more defensive fashion, which you do see in a lot of other decks.
I mean, if we'd had it come out in the previous game, the Royal Giant, rather than the Sparky, we're kind of in the same spot deck-wise and sort of functionally doing the same thing. You don't have that same ability to kill off swathes of units, but that wasn't really what Espan seemed like they were trying to use it for. They were trying to get it onto the other side of the field and actually hit towers with it, which is exactly what you said. The Royal Giant would do so much better of a job because it just can't be distracted by everything coming. But we are into our second series. Espan and Jeebus, they're now on even footing. And who's got stronger footing than Immorta?
Well, hopefully it has good foundations. Otherwise, every time it's shot, it'd be flying away. But with a lot of pressure going onto it early, this is looking like a pretty solid elixir trade, if you ask me, with the Electro Wizard as well to back it up. Cannon Cart, however, will mean that that's not too much, and especially with the Mother Witch coming on through, that's a good opportunity for them to get aggressive here.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it didn't do a ton of damage in the end, around 50 or so, but yeah, if we're looking for a game that's won by inches, that is first blood of a sort to Espan. Of course, the players are going to have to give away their secrets now as the graveyard comes in.
What a timing for that one, as they invested the graveyard straight away. The volley is there to mitigate most of the damage, but that's still a good way to catch them, however, because they literally just invested the Valkyrie on that right-hand side. Espan was almost caught unawares.
All right. We got something a little bit different here from Espan, so we're going to be able to get a good couple of hits on the left-hand side as well. Of course, our Golden Knight will be able to return the favor with interest before turning themselves into a hog.
I'd say he looks a lot more tasty now.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll have to see. Oh, wait a second. We've got ourselves a village being established here, or being set up by Jeebus. They're bringing out something different as well.
The Barbarian Hut comes on through and already using it to kind of apply that pressure, and it is quite hard for Morta to deal with it in the most effective manner. It shoots away and might even target the hut, but that's fine because other units are going to be hunting it down.
And mortars everywhere, not a drop to drink. In comes the poison to be able to cut down the defenders on the way into the tower. Espan holding onto a lot of elixir, presumably looking for some kind of counter push.
Yeah, looking for a chance to strike on back with the Mother Witch as well. You can provide a decent front line, but there's not really much to back it up in terms of damage. That Valkyrie in there, but the graveyard dropped on the right-hand side. Espan had one of their own in the back pocket.
Alright, something a little bit different here to go along with those rascals.
Oh my god!
On the left-hand side. Look at that damage!
Oh my lord, if that last card is a big spell of some kind, this could easily end in just a second. You can see right now Espan's looking at it and frankly salivating, looking for a chance to make that push happen. But if Graveyard comes onto their own, they need to be ready for their own kind of push. They have a volley potentially in hand, but the Mother Witch is making short work of that one. Look at this push that could be coming now. The Valkyrie clears out on their own, and Espan strikes back here in Series 2 with Game 1.
Apparently, we're perhaps a little early with the idea of trying to think that maybe there's been some little, putting off for Espan losing out in that first series. That was so incredibly well done. You can see, they really felt like they had exactly the right tools for the job at nearly every step of the way.
Really did, and again showed just how well they can play things like Mortar. And I mean, that wasn't something obviously we knew Espan had in their wheelhouse as kind of something that's strong, but obviously something we knew they had kind of floating around like a lot of other decks. And it's good to see that they can play that to a high level and take down Jeebus here with Mortars of their own. So managing to defeat Jeebus on that, I think that's a pretty good sign for Espan. I think the ball is now thoroughly in Jeebus's court with only 2 wins away from Espan picking this up. You've got to feel the heat.
I think that, it's what we were talking about before. I don't think we're going to be seeing any more kind of out there plays from Espan. They knew before they could take riskier moves when it came to their deck construction because they had the 1 series in hand. So, they were more willing to try things which would maybe have a few more counters and just hope that Jeebus didn't have them. Now I think we're going to get down to brass tacks. We're going to get down to fundamentals. I think Espan is going to show us exactly what they're capable of here in the 2nd series.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it again, as I said. And flexing around, it's always important to do. I think he's played a different deck every single time, and that's a good look, honestly, to me. If you're flexing around, if you're showing that you can play lots of different stuff, I'm always down for it, 100%.
Oh, congratulations to Regrets, one of our giveaway winners in the chat. Do make sure that you look out for your message from the moderator. As we are very close to the end of today, this will be our final series here in the Amazon University Esports Masters for Clash Royale. Of course, we've still got League of Legends coming down the pipe, so we're not quite done in the UEM overall, but still, it's been quite a journey getting this far.
As indeed, and if you want to watch those journeys in your home language, we've got streams as well for Spanish, German, and Portuguese. The Spanish being University Esports TV, the German being University Esports _DE, and the Portuguese being INYGONTV2. And if you want to get in touch with us on social media, UE Masters is our Twitter, and I believe also the Facebook account as well. And the hashtag is UEM2022 if you want to follow, discuss, and share.
Yes, again, do let the players know, do let us know everything you think and feel about our grand finals right now. So this is a deeply meaningful moment for all the players who've made it this far, for these two in particular who've been able to stand head and shoulders above the other. You mentioned, Jeebus, they've got that history as a player and as a coach. For Espan, they've also been working on doing a lot of work in the CR scene as well. But this, for this at this point, none of it matters. It's all about the game.
It really, really is. And already getting that game underway. And starting off with that graveyard, again, we said before, really great tool against a Royal Giant. The question is, will Espan bring that out? Hasn't even touched it yet.
No, we've got ourselves... I love this combination here with the Tombstone throwing out the skeletons, and that's fueling out our friend the Knight to be able to spam out a whole bunch of friends, but it's Mega Knight coming in. That's a pretty good AoE answer.
It really, really is. Good way to deal with things, and frankly, that Skeleton King looking a little bit shabby after that one. Oh my lord.
It gets absolutely run through. Baby Dragon is doing a little bit of damage, but I do like the Electro Wizard in here. It's going to be able to reset the charge on the Inferno Dragon pretty well, but looks like we got ourselves a Dasher and as well the Ram Rider coming in for the first time.
Oh, it was looking for its chance to hit, but unfortunately there were too many targets. It was a target-rich environment, and we saw just that. The Lumberjack coming on in here gives a lot of information over to Jeebus here that could be a threat coming their way.
All right, we'll see if this charge can make it through. Baby Dragon in the backup. Okay, there we go. I was wondering what we're going to be seeing from Espan as a reply. The drop down, of course, again, nerfed as of the latest patch for Mega Knight, but still good enough to get the job done. And also, get an actual leap onto the tower. Look at that damage.
Oh my lord, taking it so low already, and they're already investing more towards it. The Golden Knight is ready and waiting as well, so there's so much value to be had.
Oh my lord, Jeebus just got completely crumped. There's only a marginal amount of damage on the right-hand side as the Ram Rider comes in. Of course, another unit that has been nerfed to take a little bit less of a slow, but still a big hitter.
Yeah, charges on in, destroys that building, but doesn't quite manage to lead into more. Trading downwards, unfortunately, into that graveyard.
Oh my gosh, so 2 more cards to be revealed from both sides. We mentioned the Lumberjack before. We were talking about, people playing around Rage before. It's such a huge swing as the lightning in the bottle comes to the field. That's the first part of the puzzle.
And there's the second, there's the volley, does clear it up, but on the other side, the puzzle is also forming too. The Royal Giant looking to make a move, looking to take down that tower, and looking to even up the score.
It's not looking good here for Jeebus, so that attack is evaporating. We've got ourselves our Golden Knight who's just chewing through all the skeletons. At least we've got ourselves a Tombstone to buy a little bit more time, but with the lightning, with the arrows, surely this one is over.
Charging on forward, but the Skeleton King is eating away at that one, 653 HP. And with the big spell in the storm, things could end very badly, very quickly for Jeebus. Now it is double elixir and overtime. That tower could fall in a split second.
The lightning going to be used defensively. Espan's not taking any chances. The Skeleton, they're charging in.
The Royal Giant almost just did it alone, 136. That's not quite going to kill it, but now the ball is in the other court. The Tornado! Does it. What is that? We see that so often today. I am shocked, and Jeebus strikes right on back. 1-1 is the scoreline, and you would not have guessed that from the outcome of the early game of that one, considering I really thought it was going to be 2-0 to Espan. He was going to be off to the races.
I think they did as well. I think just the amount of bursts as well to be thrown out at the end. I can't believe it. Yeah, it's the Jeebus special Tornado Town taking the win there. With just that tiny amount of extra unexpected damage. So we're back to 1 apiece. It's effectively going to make this a best of 3 for the championship. 3 games away potentially from deciding who walks away with 1,000 euros and who walks away with 600. I'm pretty sure both players are happy to have gotten to the finals at all, but that's still a pretty big difference. Not to mention the ability to actually call yourself the champion.
I don't know, right? You're saying both are happy with it, but Jeebus, I mean, we were talking about how confident they were, how self-assured they were, and for good reason, as we said before. Obviously, coaching world-class players, apologies, like Vitor75, and is well known within the scene as well. They've come here to win, 100%, no doubt in my mind. Jeebus wants to win and win a lot.
Oh my gosh, so do let us know in the chat if you're here to support Jeebus from Portugal or Espan from Germany. We're 1-1 in our final series today. We will have ourselves a champion by the end of the 3rd game coming at the very latest. And hopefully we'll even get a chance to talk to our winner once it's all said and done. See if we can grab some tips for you guys for your future games to come. Again, let us know either here or on Twitter exactly what you think about today's games and what our players have shown you so far.
Yeah, to do that, you can use the hashtag UEM2022, as you can see above me here. And also don't forget to follow us on at UEMasters on Twitter there as well. So definitely check that one out. And don't forget about those giveaways, !UEM Clash Royale, all one word in the chat to win a big old box of goodies. Dragon plush included with collection cards, pins, stickers, and the Elixir plush, which is a keychain.
Alright guys, so we settle in and we have to know that our players, they're going deep into their thought banks here. I mean, for Jeebus, they've got to be breathing a sigh of relief. They could easily be facing down a loss as of this game coming right now. But, you know, based on what we saw, that was exactly what was going to happen. You know, they were ready to be down 2-0 and then have to climb the way back up, much the same way they climbed through the lower bracket. But instead, we might even see Jeebus take the lead in this game.
Yeah, I actually think it's interesting to see, right? That Jeebus, every single time they're down so much, they don't lose their cool. They just keep at it. And we've seen so many clutch situations. I'm here for some more. In fact, I think that's 2 or 3 times they've clutched out with Tornado. Again, I always forgot that it does damage. I know it does, but I still don't expect it to be the thing which decides things.
No, it really shouldn't be. I think that's one of the things that I think it's just so easy to kind of miss that from your calculations. And I think that's just what happened there. It's just, you know, there was a lot of very quick maths going on here. It's like, do I have the spells to be able to win this race? And just missing that little bit of extra damage. It's not a ton, but if the maths works out, then you can squeak out those victories and potentially tilt your opponent pretty hard coming to the next game.
Yeah, you got to be pretty mad if you're Espan, right? You felt like you had that. You played so well in the very tippy end. It all fell apart. I think Belly just got sniped away by that tornado. But the important thing is, right, is that Royal Giant just walked through and you didn't have any proper answers for it. And as I said before, if you're playing the game and you have a deck and it's not prepped properly for Royal Giant, it's really going to sting. It's always something you got to keep in mind. Jeebus kept it for so long. Espan couldn't have seen it coming.
All right, everybody, settle in. This is game 3 of our grand finals. Our champion awaits. It's Espan or Jeebus. One of these two, Flying Machine versus Miner, means that Espan will take the first blood.
Should be able to deal a lot of damage on the side as well with that cage as well, buying that little bit of extra space.
Gosh, the Goblin Cage is always a fun one to see that wobbling in the sense there. So much of a facet of the competitive scene. Yeah, we've seen, of course, already the Bomb Tower coming as a great answer to some of these more aggressive decks. Goblin Cage as well, giving you such great value on decks which rely on building damage.
Yeah, it really does. Really great way of dealing with it. And here's why we saw that Royal got to get banned away before. It is fantastic at those split pushes and fantastic at applying pressure across, regardless of where you put any of those strats.
Good Fireball, though, will cut out the Flying Machine, which was supporting the push. And ultimately, despite the amount of Elixir that was thrown into that play, there's nothing back for Jeebus at all.
Absolutely so little. Jeebus has to find a way to kind of actually get some damage down, and obviously you can kind of play the slow game, play around the Royal Recruits, but I mean, with the way it's been played so far, he's just been held back.
So we've got ourselves around 500 damage on the right-hand tower. It's a small but significant advantage with a minute left in regular time. It's looking very much like a game that's going all the way to the end of overtime, and Jeebus, they're setting themselves in for the long haul as well.
Really are able to deal with that cage, but you can see the Magic Archer brought some friends as the skeletons drop on down, but are made short work of.
We've got a chance for a small push back here from Jeebus. So the judicious use of the Fireball will help cut out some of the supporting units, and I think Jeebus is struggling to put together an attack because of how much, how much the Fireball influences things. The recruits back in the field again. We'll see if they can make more progress this time.
See, indeed, Bats eat away at the attempt to push, and it's not just Royal Recruits, also Royal Hogs, and that's a split push if I've ever seen one, but they all converge on the Mortar right now. How they'll split, I'm not quite sure, but a couple of Royal Hogs head over to that right-hand side, get a small amount of damage as they exit stage left, as the clear starts to come on in. The aggression from the Sparkers and the Cold Knight, but he just chops on through, slicing and dicing, as the health advantage finally in the favor of Jeebus.
That Fireball couldn't have been more clutch there for Espan to reset the situation. But coming into overtime, the Jeebus is actually taking the lead health-wise. It's going to be a little bit troubling for Espan, because overtime means more Elixir and more bodies on the field.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at this one and keeping an eye on how this is going to go, because these Royal Hogs are looking to really lay down the law, but there's a lot dealing with them as well, but nowhere near enough. Far too slow in mitigating that damage, but now going for a push of their own, there really is a way. However, what utility does Jeebus have to clear away so many different threats? Waiting, I believe, for the skeletons to come on out, has the volley available, but just uses the bar barrel.
Yeah, that attack is stopped in its tracks. The Skeleton King not getting the ability to go through. Mortar does get a couple of hits through, but Espan, I think they're in real trouble here. The Fireball has been pulling incredible duty at stopping these attacks, but Jeebus is able to split their attack because of the Royal Hogs.
Really are. Damage chipping away on those Royal Recruits already. The left is getting pushed. The pressure is on. They've got to do something with it. Otherwise, it will lead to a chance to push on in. But so much invested on the right-hand side. 2 Mortars still up for a brief time there. The cannon cart starts to push on in. The cage will get removed. And Espan is making a real concerted effort on the right-hand side.
Arrow's doing a good job of clearing the way. We will have a decent amount of skeletons coming out of that Skeleton King. The Mortar's getting aggressed onto. Not a lot of damage coming back from Espan's side. We are deep into overtime. That tower on the right-hand side for Espan is a huge liability. They do get the hit, but I don't think it's quite enough.
No, it really isn't. And look at the health on that right-hand side. 1,410, but there could be a Fireball. He's trying to cycle for it. Espan is lucky. He wants something, anything, a way to clutch this out. The Fireball goes in with the bar barrel as well. But look at the damage that came back out. That was so big for Jeebus. And when it comes to the clutch, do not count Jeebus out.
And it's a royal performance for a champion in waiting, Jeebus. Royal recruits, Royal Hogs, too many threats to handle. They move themselves now into pole position to take the tournament from coming through the lower bracket to getting to where they are right now. I don't think anyone would have credited it.
No, I really didn't think it right. Jeebus came on through here. It was a performance, to be fair, in the other parts of the lower bracket. I was impressed with what they did, but I really thought with what we'd heard about Espan, he was not going to be able to take him down, but here we see it. Espan pushed to the brink, back against the wall, and sure, he might find a way out of this, but it shows just how strong Jeebus is.
And for me, it felt like the kind of big problem in there was the mortar just wasn't doing the right things in this kind of matchup. While it gave some sort of inevitability, when it came to the straight up fights and get run over, it's got that minimum attack range, which just wasn't doing anything.
No, honestly, it felt so difficult, right? You see one, even two mortars out, and there's things right on top, and we're like, oh, okay, all right, I guess that's how this is going. You don't really get to have much of an effect this time, but this time, I think Espan going to try and approach it slightly differently, looking for a chance to kind of deal with this or make just a straight-up matchup cool, because I think that was the most important thing there. Espan played so well, but Jeebus just had the matchup advantage.
And Jeebus never has to say, put me in, coach, because they are the coach. One step away from taking the title here and home 1,000 euros. As well as crowning themselves champion here on the international stage. One more chance for Espan to stay alive and push us to a game 5.
Log goes in here, chunks away yet again. The graveyard coming on through, maybe expecting that Royal Giant, but here it is.
Ooh.
Mighty Miner, and I mean, it was to limited effect last time. Hopefully we'll get to see some success from it this time as the poison goes through and the Miner comes onto Espan's turret this time.
You can see the bats there, of course. There we go. There's someone using the ability to change lanes. So that is going to make it hard to deal with. But we can see from Jeebus' side, they've got answers to spare.
Do indeed. I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because obviously you activate that ability and it instantly forces a response from your opponent. Otherwise, you're really going to get to chew away on that tower.
I think it's going to be particularly frustrating in that we saw Jeebus just using the regular miner and getting more work done than they had from the champion miner.
Yeah, I think that's very true, right? The problem is the difference in stats. I think Mighty Miner does actually manage to do a lot when it gets to the tower. It just feels like it never does. It's so hard. And I mean, Miner always gets there. That's the thing. That's the positive of Miner.
We'll see. I mean, Espan is deploying the miner out, or Mighty Miner out repeatedly. I think the problem is, again, there's too many answers to what Espan is putting out in the early going. And you can see as well, Jeebus is holding their elixir right up into the last possible moment, making sure that whatever Espan does, they've got an answer and they can just come back in and steal a few extra HP away with their miner of their own.
Good barb barrel here means that mortar is likely going down to this Ice Wizard. And from that, it's a decent trade. Dragon on the left-hand side, getting ready to push, helping out that Mighty Miner. And this time, I don't think it's going to be swapping sides. It's just going to hard to commit towards this, if not for the guards, who just seem to always be in the right place at the right time.
I mean, this is what we're getting from Jeebus. They're cycling around, so they have got the right answers all the time. You see, they're leaking elixir all the time because they just keep themselves ready. The graveyard coming in could be the difference maker for Espan, though.
Well, you'd hope so, but the poison is there. It denies the usage of that graveyard pretty much entirely. Now the push starts to come on in on that left-hand side from Jeebus, looking for a chance to lock this one out. They want to take him down. They do not want to give any more opportunities over to Espan here.
Espan going to be playing defensively. The miner comes out as a defensive unit. The bats are all over them, though, in the heartbeat, diverging across the other side of the map. Check out Jeebus' right-hand tower that has taken a ton from that last exchange on the tail end of the play.
As indeed, Mighty Miner starts to move on forward, but obviously gets taken down by that poison. As the graveyard comes in yet again to buy a little bit of space, but the miner wails away on that left-hand tower as more units come in to try and support.
The pressure is building. Jeebus one step away from the title. Espan seem to be the heir apparent. They're going to have to fight with everything they have. In comes the Graveyard, in comes the Miner being pulled away by the Valkyrie. The damage is being done though. Espan is ahead of the play with 1 minute left.
Yeah, it's been ahead for a while. Good Barbarian yet again does mean they can try and clear up that mortar at least somewhat here as the push starts to come on in. Miner versus Mighty Miner is now the push starts to come on that left-hand side. Can Espan make even more of it? Could easily swap one over, and I don't think it's a bad shout with that poison there. Just one elixir to do it, but gets caught up, drops the bomb, and now makes the move with Graveyard backup.
Now that's something your Miner can't normally do for you. We have got the pinging back in with the tornado. The damage is good. Left-hand tower is low, but not low enough. 30 seconds left. It's a win here puts Espan back 2-2 to have it all decided on the final game. Graveyard coming out. The guards immediately. The poison drops as well.
Yeah, it's going to go low, but it's not going to fall here, importantly, I believe. No, wait! It's taking way more damage than I thought! It was misplaced in Espan! You could see with the emote wiping the sweat off his brow. Damn, that was close. But Espan manages to win it, and we are in the final round now. This is for all the marbles. For 1,000 euros for that first place spot and to be a winner of your University Esports Masters. And honestly, what a slog it has been, but oh boy, it's been worth it.
Oh my gosh, just the idea of saying, just gonna go now play a casual game of Clash Royale for 1,000 euros. What are you up to this evening? Nothing particularly impressive. The pressure. If there's ever been a time for the pressure to tell on our players, it's got to be now. The decision they make of what deck to bring into the next round is absolutely everything.
It so is. And sometimes you walk in and you go, all right, I've got the wrong deck. So you need to pick the most... Either you got to hedge your bets with going those middle of the road decks possible, or you got to big brain it. You got to make the call. You got to go, okay, I know you. For example, if you're Espan, you look over to Jeebus and go, all right, you've played all these decks. I think here you're going to play this. And this is where that information, all the information they've had so far, comes into play so hard. How do you deal with Jeebus? There are so many decks, but there's so much information too. And this is the culmination of it all.
So as we're coming to the end of today, one final game for all the marbles. Do make sure you get in with the exclamation mark UEM Clash Royale in chat. We still got giveaways to finalize today before we are completely done here at the University Esports Masters for Clash Royale. Our thanks again to Twitch Student and Intel for making today's event possible. And I'm glad, Rook, we've made it to the very furthest this could have gone. One final flashpoint, one final game to determine everything.
I couldn't ask for a better way. The only thing which could make this more fitting is if it ends with a very clutch situation and a fireball and a tornado pointing on either side. And who can win? I can't tell you, but I would be so excited to see it go down that way. I think it'd be very interesting. I mean, so far we've seen a lot of games really go the distance, and it shows just how much competition there is here in Europe in the university scene, and I am so glad and so here for it, right? And it's not just, there's competition within the university level. No, there's competition within the university level with top players as well. I mean, we've got Jeebus coming on over with a decent amount of international experience, and obviously, as we said before, as we've highlighted before, coaching experience at a very top level. And I mean, you can see just how important it is and just how impactful they kind of play. I mean, Espan as well, I believe, playing on an organization, at least currently, and I'm excited to see more from them in the future.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this very well could just be a chapter in what could very well be a burgeoning rivalry between these two. I mean, they've certainly shown they can bring the best out of each other, and that's the perfect thing to have happen at the university level as well, is that these are developing players who go on to become household names in their scene, hopefully. This will be, maybe they'll look back at each other from a world stage in the future and remember this day when they brought each other to the very, very end of everything that was possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really excited to more from Airspawn in particular, obviously playing for Dark Emperor Esports for about a year and a half now, and has had some pretty exciting matches to watch for sure. So definitely keep an eye out for them if you're on the German or if you're on the European, or potentially even if they make it that far, the international scene as well. So definitely looking forward to that one as we get pumped, get excited for the final matchup here of the day. Oh boy.
Hold on to your butts, everybody, because we have got ourselves a lava hound. We saw how this went before. Espan, for all the marbles, takes the biggest risk they could really possibly take. They've gone full commit. Both players are ignoring each other.
Espan makes a beeline for that right-hand tower, but they're losing slowly on this left-hand side, and the poison is doing a hell of a lot of work here. Unfortunately for them, I don't think this was a good gambit at all, especially with that left-hand tower. I mean, it's dying in one more chuck of that mortar, but it doesn't quite make it in. I miscounted the number of throws.
Oh my gosh, I did not believe that Espan would be willing to try and effectively base race in this important of a game, but they did it and they lost out massively. I mean, it's funny for me to say this is over already, but that couldn't have gone much worse without actually losing the whole freaking tower itself.
It really couldn't have. I mean, look at it there, right? It's a fantastic elixir trade for Jeebus. Drops the mortar, drops the guards, and that alone is enough for a push and an aggressive push at that. You look at the Lava Hound, it's 7 mana, and it doesn't even make the push happen on its own. It has to have that backup. So you invest 11 in total, and there's 1 unit invested, right? From Jeebus that drags away the damage dealer. So it does not matter. The advantage is so heavily in favor of Jeebus, but the damage is still coming because the Lumberjack works wonders and gives them a chance. Magic has occurred here, but looking at the fact that both of these towers on S1's side are so low, it might need more than just a little bit of magic with that poison going on.
Espan has only got moments. I had genuinely thought they'd given up on this one because they were so far behind. They're going to lose the 2 towers. They have got 54 seconds to try and take the King Tower or the left-hand Princess.
I mean, at this point, it's quicker for the King Tower. You can see it right there. 2,700 HP. It's lower. There goes the Lava Hound. It really wants to make it. The guards coming out. The Queen Archer coming through to the poison to buy that time. Can they find the right target?
Lava Hound goes to the wrong target. The pups, I think, are being drawn away as well. Lovely play from Jeebus. Even under this exceptionally unusual situation, they are playing it crisp as anything. I don't know if Espan's got enough time left to make a push in. If we had overtime, maybe. But there is no overtime. Jeebus is already polishing the #1 trophy. I think that's a little bit much at this point, but it's pretty on point as well.
Yeah, the clone was almost fantastic there, but it didn't lead to enough. And the opening gambit was just that. Unfortunately for our German player, a gambit and a half. And Jeebus picks up the win. What a performance, honestly, clearing the whole way through. We got to see all the matches possible from them, and all of them were darn well exciting.
Congratulations, Jeebus. It was a hell of a ride to get that far. Representing the Nova School of Science and Technology, studying for a master's in electronic and computer engineering. They did what, I don't think many players could even have considered to get that far, to do that well, to go all the way to Game 5. That's not the Game 5 I was expecting remotely, but hey, it's the one we got.
Yeah, I am honestly very, very happy with that match, and I would honestly pay to see more. I would love to, but unfortunately that is all we have time for. So all I have to say is I was impressed by the fact that we saw kind of a very heavy focus on Princess Archer, and I think honestly that's the really right call from Jeebus more than anything, because obviously the Golden Knight can be fantastic. He can clean up a lot of really medium units with that dash, and the Skeleton King can, be a big haymaker. But if you're talking about consistency, the Queen Archer was the core of it, and I love the fact that Jeebus had a focus on that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on fighting the Skeleton King. While theoretically pretty solid, didn't end up being the big difference maker. I did enjoy at least that we were seeing a fair amount of dashing around the place, and we were seeing the variety. I'd hope that we maybe would have seen a bigger impact from our mighty mana. It was enough to kind of to justify it being in the competition, to turn up in the finals as well. But I think you're right. The Archer's consistency, even post-nerf, losing 20% of her bonus attack speed while she's got her ability active, it didn't ultimately make it too much of a difference. She's still extremely good and extremely solid.
Yeah, Tapper destroy an individual unit basically pretty much most of the time, apart from those really tanky ones, and even keep herself alive. It makes for a really, really tricksy problem for them. And I mean, across the board, we saw a lot of different decks bringing out the Hog in a more controlling manner. Loved as well their focus on the mortars and how well they were using it, and also being able to counter that at the same time, playing that split push style strategy. Jeebus really showed that they knew it all.
All right, I do believe we have got Jeebus coming in to join us in just a second for their championship winning interview. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what they're going to be sounding like after doing all that. I think I would just sound completely exhausted, but I suspect they're going to sound triumphant instead.
Yeah, I mean, after so many games, you have to at least expect it. You know, starting off with some pretty nail-biting ones as well, right? Right at the beginning, even from day one, from Series 1, it was last-second wins. I believe the first two, they won 3 rounds in a row, but the first one was a clutch, the third one was a clutch, and the second one was a stomp, yes. But so many more of these situations where we see again and again and again, Jeebus just rise out to the cream at the top. Crop.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like, I think, this is one of those rare opportunities to kind of get to experience that for yourself, to be, logically, if you come into a competition and you kind of struggle every single step of the way, you would think that's not generally going to be a great sign for your chances of actually winning the entire thing. But to have that disproven in front of our eyes here, I think is a great lesson for anybody. If you're playing in a future tournament just like this one, and every single game is hard, every single one is hard fought, that doesn't mean you can't win it all.
Yeah, it really doesn't. And, I'm excited to see more from this player going forward, and more from players they're coaching as well. And I mean, that knowledge was fantastic to see when it was actually implemented. Because sometimes you have people who go, I know how to play this deck and a couple of others a little bit, but really the kind of wide range of knowledge was absolutely fantastic to see.
All right, I think we do have Jeebus with us right now, or at least very shortly. So we'll be talking to them in just a second to hear about what they've got to say about that last encounter. Oh my gosh, I mean, certainly looking forward to what hopefully we'll be seeing a whole lot more. I mean, of Espan, of all the other players we've had playing here today. You just mentioned, of course, players getting towards the top there with the previous experience, but of course we start off with 16 players all representing their countries here, including, of course, our 2 friends from the UK, who didn't necessarily make it as far as we would have liked them to, but maybe next time.
Maybe next time indeed, but there is no next time for Jeebus. He won right here, right now, today. Fantastic performance, and congratulations, Jeebus. How do you feel?
Thank you. I feel happy, and I don't know what to say besides that.
Well, I mean, I guess, with that last game, with how close it all was, I kind of, what do you remember most strongly from those last couple of series? Did you come in, expecting it to be that competitive?
Right now, I haven't been playing too much because I moved from a player to coach, so I didn't have any nerves, I guess you could say. So I was just playing my game and playing for fun. People were sniping me, like my 2 main decks, and I was just playing like whatever I wanted because I knew they wouldn't snipe if I didn't play comfort. So it worked in the end, I think.
Fair enough. I mean, we saw some pretty nail-biting games from you multiple times, stealing away with Tornado and other reach cards. How do you feel about particular kind of about spells right now? I feel like Log is actually a card which could potentially be banned away by some of the more aggressive decks. Do you feel like that's possible?
Yeah. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but Log will get a 33% nerf, I think.
Oh, wow.
Because like every time you play against a Log deck, you can't go same lane because you're going to get Log cycled. So I think Log is really a really strong card in the meta.
I'd like to hear, what do you have to say, to Esbam and to the other players who you played against in the tournament? Are there any players who kind of struck out to you, that have been particularly memorable?
I faced Saint Belican, which was a CRL pro in the past, but he hasn't played the game, so he didn't perform the best, I think. And the only player I was really afraid was Inorash, because he has been playing very well in CRL. But I knew if I made the right deck picks, because he's very poor on strategy, I would win, and that's what happened. And the rest of the players, I don't really know them that well, so I just treated them with respect and gave my best all the time. So.
That sure is the coach mentality that we're seeing from you there.
Yeah,
Great to hear.
Exactly.
We were mentioning a couple of times where it's like in that situation when you're in the very clutch, you can hear your coach and you're going, don't worry, you win this. You just go simple, play exactly what you need to, just look for that reach and always find it at the top. Is there anyone you'd like to shout out, maybe your team or anyone you've been coaching recently, or anyone we should watch out for on the wider scene?
I'm just going to give a shout out to my friend that helped me, Vitor75. Most people know him because he's a CRL pro, and a friend of mine also was in call called Enigma, which is a close friend. They were helping me, and yeah, that's it.
All right, Jeebus, well, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully, we'll be able to cross paths again down the line. But again, congratulations on taking the #1 spot here after 2 amazing series. But guys, that will be pretty much the end of what we've got for you this evening. So again, we'd like to thank our sponsors, our Twitch Student and Intel, for making the Amazon University Esports Masters Clash Royale competition possible. Of course, we've got to look forward to the League of Legends, our final competition coming up a little way down the pipe, as the final and crowning part of the entire experience.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Definitely tuning into that. A lot of great casters as well. A couple of friends of ours likely to be on that one, and fantastic comms to definitely listen to, regardless of what language as well. A couple of other streams coming on that one, and thank you as well to the other language streams. You've been absolutely fantastic in bringing this to a wider audience and to those more native speaking audience, especially because we had obviously no native English speakers in the finals. It was great to see that, and obviously Portuguese and German streams must have been having an absolute field day with that one.
Absolutely, it's an amazing thing to be able to see in your native language, especially when you've got a player from your own country managing to make it that far. But still, though, it's been an honour to be able to bring you today's competition. It's all over, lamentably too soon, but at least we got to see a finals that went all the way, all the distance. Absolutely amazing stuff, and there's of course so much more to see from these players down the line as well. I've been Canafit, joined by Rook. Our thanks to everyone behind the scenes who made today possible. But for now, we'll say goodnight.
Yeah.